I could hardly breathe because we were in a bad situation. Charles had heard about Athan's actions from the werewolf we blinded, and he must be suspicious of me at the moment. "Boss, her shoulder joints are out of position," a man behind Charles said. "Come here, my dear. Let me take a look," Charles said in a gentle voice. I obediently walked to the door of the cell, my shoulders hanging limply at my sides. Charles looked into my eyes carefully and said, "Tell me, what happened?" I lost my dagger, so I choked myself, and he removed my arms, stopped me from moving. Charles stared at me for a few more seconds, and then he started clapping his hands. "I am impressed that you actually think of a way to stop her from hurting herself." Then he turned to me, stretched out his hand and said, "Come here a little, dear, let me help you." I taped some into him, and he put his hand out of the fence through the cell door, but didn't grab my arm, but grabbed my neck. His big hand squeezed my neck, and the familiar choking feeling returned. "Let her go." Athan's angry voice came from behind, but he didn't come close. That's because the werewolf next to Charles was pointing a gun at my head. As long as Athan dares to charge over, I'm sure he would pull the trigger without hesitation. Charles's hands tightened, he kept squeezing my neck, and the smile on his face went crazier. At this moment, I could not even tell if he was trying to see if I'm awake, or if he was just simply enjoying the pleasure of abusing me. But even though I was about to pass out, I gritted my teeth and said nothing. I kept telling myself that I was Charles's puppet at the moment, and puppets have no emotions. They just mechanically fulfill their master's commands. Even if I was about to die, I didn't make a sound. A second before I was about to pass out, Charles finally let go. He raised his hand and signaled the person behind him to open the cell door. The werewolf grabbed my arm and slammed it up, and I heard the sound of joints resetting. "My dear, how are you feeling?" Charles stroked his finger down my cheek, so it was so hard to hold back the urge to punch his face. I didn't speak because when I was in control, I hardly talked unless he asked me a specific question. Charles put down his hand and looked at Athan. He smiled and said, "See, I just fixed your girl for you." As he spoke, he took out a gun and handed it to me. He leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Point it at him, my dear." My heart twitched. Did he really want me to kill Athan? How should I keep pretending? I took the gun expressionlessly, turned and pointed it at Athan. Charles and his people were behind me so they couldn't see my face. I looked at Athan with panic. What should I do now? "It's okay. Shoot. I can hide from it." His voice sounded in my head. "Don't hesitate. He is testing you." I gritted my teeth, and there was no other way. Athan was sitting still on the ground at the moment, not moving. I pulled the trigger with my finger and found the magazine was empty. I felt fortunate and at the same time stunned. Didn't Charles want to kill Athan? What was he going to do? Athan seemed to be surprised too. He looked at Charles and frowned. "Why? Are you too scared to kill me?" Charles laughed out loud behind me, and then he slowly said, "Of course not. I'm just trying to make the game interesting." "Catherine, my dear," he called my name, and I stiffly turned around and looked at him. His smile was crazy and evil, but his tone was cold and ruthless. I heard him say, "Now, put the gun on your head and pull the trigger." That bastard, he was playing the Russian roulette. "Wait," Athan shouted. He sounded nervous. "Charles, don't hurt her. This is between you and me. Just tell me what you want. I only want to see you suffer, and I have found how efficient it is to simply hurt your girl than hurting you." Charles laughed like a maniac. "Catherine, pull the trigger now." Bang! The sounded, and only smoke came out of the muzzle. It was empty again. I had to admit I was gambling. By now this had become a mind game, and if I wanted to play along, I had to take Srisk's risk. I had to say, that was the craziest game I had played in my entire life. Charles made a squeaky sound from his throat, and the intensive game had made him beyond excited. He looked like a drugged addict who was high. "Keep going, my dear. Don't stop," he shouted. I turned around again and faced Athan. I pointed the gun at him, and my gut was telling me that this time there would be a bullet. I closed my eyes and calmed myself down. I would turn and shoot him. Athan kept hinting at me with his eyes. "Don't do it. Shoot it at me. I can take it." But I couldn't wait anymore. Just when I was about to turn and attack Charles, a loud scream cut through the tension. Stop! What the fuck do you think you're doing, Charles? I let out a relieved sigh. I recognized that voice, Athan's sister, Amelia Buffet. The room went silent. Charles turned around and faced his wife, and Amelia looked serious. She walked past Charles and stopped in front of the cell, looking at her brother. After a few seconds, she turned to me and said, "Give me that gun." I didn't move. Charles laughed with a low voice, and he spoke slowly. "I haven't had a chance to tell you yet. I've had everything under control." He reached his hand and looked at me. "Give me the gun, Catherine." When I obediently handed him the gun, Amelia looked surprised. Her eyes flicked between Athan's and my faces, and after a moment of silence, she said to Charles, "I need to talk to you alone," and she pointed a finger at me. "Take her with us." Athan quickly moved forward and grabbed my hand. He pulled me into his arms. "Don't touch her." I stayed still until Charles gave me another order. "Come with us, my dear." I broke free from Athan's hands and walked towards the door. "Keep pretending, Catherine." Athan's voice sounded in my head. "If things go wrong, don't come back for me. Go look for Finn and let him help you." I didn't look back, and soon I followed them out of the cell. Charles took her to a small room on the other side of the warehouse. As soon as we entered the room, a werewolf closed the door behind us. There were only 3 of us left in the room. Amelia had her back to us. I couldn't tell what was she thinking. Honestly, I've never seen a she-wolf has such a strong aura. Charles walked closer to her, and with a loud sound, she slapped him in the face hard. "Have you forgotten who you are, Charles?" Amelia didn't hold back her strength when she slapped him, but Charles stood still. If it were me who took that hit, I'd probably have a bad concussion by now. Charles didn't get mad. Instead, he laughed with pleasure. "I've missed you, my dear." Amelia pushed his shoulder and stopped his hug. She glanced at me and frowned. "Didn't I tell you to get rid of this woman? Why is she still here?" "Do you remember the ancient witchcraft I told you about? It worked!" Charles's voice became excited. "She listens to me now." Amelia didn't get too excited by this news. Instead, she looked at me suspiciously, and after a few seconds, she walked up to me and stared at my face. At that moment, I tried desperately to contain my nervousness. This she-wolf was terrifying. She was tall, and her blue eyes were fixed on me. I could feel her carefully smelling my scent, feeling my breath, and she was watching me up close. I felt my heart beat a little faster, not sure if she would notice. All I could do was to put on a blank expression and play an obedient puppet. Amelia's face got closer and closer, and as she spoke, her breath lightly sprayed on my face. "How do you know she's not pretending?" Charles reached into his arms, took out a small ring box, and smiled. If she were pretending, she wouldn't have helped me steal the real alpha ring. Amelia turned sharply, her hair thrown in my face. Her breathing was visibly quicker, and I saw her shoulders rise and fall with her breathing. She walked over quickly, reaching for the ring box, but Charles raised his hands to avoid hers. She stopped the movement in her hand and said eagerly, "Give it to me." Charles said with a smile, "Don't forget your agreement with me, and I will keep your ring for you until everything is over." These two's conversations made me so confused. At first, I thought they were working together, but now it looked like Amelia didn't know a lot of things that Charles did. What were they up to? Amelia took back her hand, and she went silent, looking like she was thinking. After a while, she shook her head and said, "No, I can't just kill him. The elderlies in the pack would know it's us who did it." "Who said about killing him, my dear?" Charles put his hands on Amelia's shoulder and turned her toward me. "We've got a strong weapon on our hand now." A chill ran down my spine, and I pinched myself quietly to calm myself down. Amelia reached out and stroked my face slowly, and she was so close to me that I felt my scalp tingle. You are such a beauty. Now I know why my brother loves you so much." Suddenly, she pinched my face hard, and then let go. My face burned in pain, and I finally understood what they wanted from me. "We don't need to kill Athan, but if his mate is dead, then his strength will be greatly impaired." Charles mumbled in a low voice. In the dim light, Amelia smiled again. They both looked at me and slowly approached me. What should I do? Should I fight back? But I didn't think I stood a chance in front of the two of them. In just a few seconds, I thought about countless thoughts. but I still didn't know what to do. My back was sweating as they approached me. "Boss, something went wrong." Suddenly, a werewolf ran into the room. He was in such a rush that he didn't even knock on the door. Charles frowned and said, "What is it?" The man just came in and looked startled and shocked. His voice was shaking. The lichen is at the gate." "What? How would he come here?" Amelia said incredulously. "Not just him. He came with Emma Smith's body. She's dead." Amelia rushed out in panic, and her face went pale. Since the first time I saw this woman, her expression had never been so scared. But there's a reason for that. No one wants to be an enemy of the lichen. The lichen was the most powerful being in the werewolf tribe, and hardly any pack wanted to provoke him. Now that he showed up at her front gate with his niece's body, it was very obvious he thought whoever killed his niece was inside this factory. I looked at Charles, who hadn't moved or said anything. He didn't look as panicked as Amelia. Actually, he looked somewhat satisfied. He was staring at the floor, and his fingers were tapping the table rhythmically. The most terrible kind of people in the world were people like him. Because he was ruthless and utterly clever, he only cared about himself. Sorry to frighten you, darling." Charles walked close to me, and there was excitement in his eyes. He leaned close to me and whispered, "There's something I need you to do." I stood there quietly listening to his instructions. Although I looked calm, I was actually shocked. This man, Charles, was even scarier than I imagined. 15 minutes later, I followed Charles to the gate of the factory. The sky was getting brighter, and there was a refreshing coolness in the morning air. However, everyone's expressions were extremely heavy. I thought the lichen would show up with at least his army, but in reality, he only brought a werewolf escort. In contrast, Amelia stood opposite him, with no less than 8 strong werewolf deltas behind her. And on the ground between them, Emma Smith was wearing a long olive-green dress that just reached her knees. Her pretty blonde hair was slightly curled and casually draped over her shoulders. Her face was pale and gray, and her eyes were closed. I suddenly felt pity for her, and I remembered that she had beautiful eyes. She looked like she was asleep, but her lower body was covered in blood, and one of her legs was mercilessly twisted and broken into a weird angle. The most shocking thing was the redness between her legs. Her beautiful skirt was violently torn from the middle, and it looked like her skirt was roughly sewn now. Maybe the lichen couldn't bear to see her tragic death, so he had someone trim her clothes before he brought her here. The atmosphere was tense, but the lichen looked very calm. He showed no anger, sadness, or even any other emotion. He just looked at Amelia and Charles lightly, hands behind his back, but his eyes showed a look of majesty. The lichen stared at Amelia and spoke. "I once heard about the things between you and my niece, but I never cared about it. As long as she's happy, I will let her be with whomever she wants. But your pack first unilaterally canceled the engagement of the two of us, and then it became involved with my niece's death. Today I seek justice not as the lichen, but as an uncle, as Emma's father's brother. My king, there must be a huge misunderstanding. I don't know who misled you about me, but Emma was my close friend, and I swear to the moon goddess I have nothing to do with her death. Please believe me that I am as mad and miserable as you right now." Amelia bowed her head slightly, and her tone sounded both eager and indignant. The lichen snorted and looked away. He waved his hand to the werewolf behind him, and the man threw a piece of paper at Amelia. The flimsy piece of paper fell at Amelia's feet. She crouched down and picked it up, looking down at the contents of the note. I was standing a little far away from her, so I couldn't see what was on the note. But I could clearly see that Amelia's body began to tremble violently, and her fingers holding the note were shaking too much, and the note fell back to the ground lightly again. As the note fell to the ground, this time I finally saw what was on it. The note was a death note written in blood with only 2 words on it, Amelia. "No! Impossible! I didn't do it! I would never kill Emma!" she shouted. The lichen looked down at Amelia, his voice full of authority. "This note was hidden in Emma's underwear. When I found it, the blood on it was still wet." He frowned and lowered his voice. "Emma was a kind person that she respected you and loved you. Why on earth did you kill her like this?" It all happened so fast that Amelia apparently didn't expect her to be accused as the murderer. Seriously, judging by her reaction, she seemed really sad, and I didn't believe she killed Emma Smith. As for the lichen, I believe he came here all by himself, was because he wanted to avenge the murderer himself. He approached Amelia step by step, but was blocked by the deltas Amelia had trained. The lichen waved back, and a brown wolf flew over his head and rushed towards the 8 deltas. With 1 against 8, the brown wolf knocked them down effortlessly. Seeing that the lichen was about to walk up to Amelia, she exclaimed, "Wait, things are not settled yet. I know who killed Emma." She turned, looking first at Charles and then at me. She pointed at me and said, "She is our alpha, Athan's true mate, and Athan killed Emma to be with her." In an instant, the lichen looked at me. There was a dangerous light in his eyes, and I'm sure he was ready to skin me for his niece's burial. My hands and feet felt a moment of stiffness, and I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. A powerful aura surrounded me, and I felt a little suffocated. "What's your name? Which pack are you originally from?" The lichen whispered, looking like a vulture in the desert. "Catherine Green. I no longer belong to any pack. I'm an Omega," I answered. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Charles, a sinister smirk on his lips, and I remembered what he had told me 20 minutes ago. "Are you really Athan's true mate?" The lichen was staring at me. I looked up and met his eyes, nodded at him. "It's them. They didn't hesitate to kill Emma in order to be together," Amelia said excitedly. At this point, she was desperate. Maybe just now she realized that the lichen would not give her a chance to explain, so she was eager to put the blame on Athan. She walked towards me, her voice getting louder and louder. "If you don't believe me, you can go into the warehouse." Her voice was suddenly interrupted by severe cough. Charles was clutching his chest, sounding less like a healthy werewolf than a lung cancer patient. Everyone looked at him. Charles coughed and bent over, and it took a long time for him to calm down. He raised his head and said apologetically to the lichen, "I'm so sorry to interrupt you. This is my warehouse, and my wife and I would like to invite you in for a cup of tea." The lichen raised his eyebrows and said contemptuously, "I'm here to catch the murderer, not to drink tea. Whether it's your wife or your wife's brother, and I don't care if the murderer is your alpha or someone else, I'm going to avenge my niece." Yes, of course. Perhaps he was frightened by the majesty of the lichen. Charles's face turned pale. He stepped forward in a panic, bowed slightly, and said with a trembling voice, "I feel deeply sorry for your loss. Just please don't blame Amelia. She's innocent." As he bowed down, suddenly a white cloth bag fell out from the inside of his suit. The cloth bag fell on the concrete floor, making a slight noise. Charles's breathing became very rapid in an instant, and his face became even paler. He hurriedly reached out to pick up the white bag on the ground, but was kicked away by the lichen's brown wolf. I looked at Amelia, who didn't seem to understand the situation, just glanced at her husband with some doubt. Maybe she was still blaming her husband for not protecting her better. The white cloth bag was handed to the lichen, who frowned, opened the bag, and shook it down a few times. A delicate dagger fell to the ground, and the blade was covered in blood. A note was tied to the end of the dagger, and most of the note had been stained red with blood. Please forgive Amelia. She didn't mean to do it." Charles suddenly fell to his knees in front of the lichen, grabbing his arm and praying in tears. The lichen glanced at him, and soon he was pulled away by the brown wolf, who shifted back to human form. The lichen's fingers were trembling. He was standing near me as he opened the note, and I saw what was on it. On the note, there was a word that was written in blood. "Why?" "What is on it?" Amelia asked, her voice trembling. The lichen took out the death note he found on Emma and put the 2 notes together, and the edges of the 2 note strips fit together perfectly. The lichen's whole body was shaking with rage, and on the complete note in his hand, there were 3 big words in bright red. "Amelia, why? Why did you kill me? Why?" I could hear the sad, questioning voice in that note. Charles lowered his head and avoided eye contact with Amelia, who was in extreme shock right now. She looked at everything in disbelief and shouted angrily, "Charles, how dare you frame me?" She swooped towards Charles. However, in the blink of an eye, Lichen, who was still standing in front of me, flashed away. He teleported to Amelia and grabbed her neck with one hand. I was blown away by his speed, and the fastest person I had ever seen before him was Athan. But compared to the lichen, his speed was only decent. Her feet struggled constantly, and her hands slapped frantically the lichen's hand that was choking her neck. "Wait, I can explain." Amelia struggled to squeeze the words out. Lichen hesitated, then let go and threw her to the ground. Holding her neck, she coughed violently, took a deep breath for a while, and then stood up, trembling slightly. She stared at her husband and said word by word, "Charles was the one that killed Emma, I can assure you. Otherwise, how do you explain about the dagger? Why did he have it? He had prepared everything all along." She turned to the lichen and cried out loud, "I have no reason to kill Emma, but he has every reason to frame me. If I die, then he can take over all my armies and my birthright." "Of course, you have reasons to kill Emma," I spoke with a calm voice, and I made sure everyone heard me. The lichen looked at me fiercely, his eyes were red, and he looked like he was about to lose his patience. I continued, "Not only do I know why you killed her, but I also know how you killed her. Because I was there when you did it." "You bitch! Nonsense! She's talking nonsense!" Amelia screamed. I looked at the lichen, and under his frowning brow were his sharp eyes that seemed to be able to see through all lies. He raised his chin lightly at the werewolf behind him, who immediately stepped forward and grabbed Amelia and gagged her, and Amelia, a woman who was usually strong, had no power to resist the werewolf. Charles stepped up to me, put his hand on my shoulder, smiled, and said, "Don't worry, Miss Green, please tell the truth." There was a hint of smugness hidden in his smile, and a flash of excitement flashed in his eyes. Behind him, his wife was staring at him with hatred, as if to devour him alive. However, he obviously didn't care about his wife's mood. Or rather, he couldn't wait to see her impending end. At this moment, everything was finally clear to me. Charles didn't intend to follow his wife's words from the beginning. He not only wanted to kill Athan, but also wanted to take his pack for himself. And to do this, he has to ensure that his wife cannot inherit the Alpha's position. And the best way for him to do all this was to get rid of this pair of siblings all at once. That's why he murdered Emma Smith in secret and put the blame on his wife. Then he ordered me to testify. Once the lichen believes that Amelia was the one who killed his niece, he would demand her life for sure. At that time, he only needed to get rid of Athan, who had been seriously injured and locked up, and then he would be able to take over the entire pack as Amelia's husband. What a great play. I really wanted to applaud him if I hadn't had to pretend to be under his control. The lichen seemed to calm down at the moment. He squinted slightly at me and said slowly, "In this case, I need to take Amelia. Mr. Lee, do you have any problem with this?" Charles lowered his head, turned around and said sadly, "I believe that my wife must have her reason. Maybe it was an accident. Please spare her life." The lichen chuckled and shook his head. "I didn't expect you to be pleading for her. If that's the case, then I'm sure we'll see you soon, Mr. Lee." Leaving these intriguing words, the lichen and his bodyguards soon disappeared into the morning mist with Amelia. I looked away in the direction they were leaving, then gave Charles a light glance. There was a slight tremor in his back, and then he turned around quickly and grabbed my neck hard. "Good job, my love." He squeezed hard on my neck. "Now we only have one last thing left." His eyes became fierce, and he even showed his fangs. It seems that he wants to get rid of me now. He approached me slowly, his voice full of indifference. "Women like you are not worth living. You have nothing but beauty. Look, it's because of you that Athan fell into my trap. With that said, I may need to thank you." The strength in his hands increased, and the expression on his face became crazier and crazier. At this moment, I took out the short dagger I had prepared for a long time and severely cut his right eye. "Ah!" Charles lost his strength in an instant. He let go of the hand that grabbed my neck, covered his right eye, and kept screaming. Blood flowed down his fingers, and his right face was instantly dyed red. I stepped backwards, turned around, and ran towards the warehouse. At this time, I heard a wolf howling from behind me. The howl was so cruel that one could not help but tremble when he heard it. I had to speed up my run, because Charles behind me had shifted into a wolf. Damn it, I didn't expect that even if he was injured, his fighting power was still so amazing. Until then, Charles had always looked cunning and crafty, that I had forgotten for a while that he was once the head of the Rouges. The huge gray wolf behind me was getting closer and closer, and an invisible fear surrounded me. His frantic laughter penetrated my eardrums, and he shouted frantically to his subordinates, "Don't touch her. This one is mine." I could almost see the door of the warehouse, but there were several tall werewolves standing at the door. I had to make a sharp turn and run into the side alley. I quickly ducked behind an iron bucket, holding my breath and waiting. As long as I take the initiative when Charles catches up, maybe I still have a chance to beat him. However, it was extremely quiet around me. It was utter silence, and I couldn't hear the slightest sound of Charles's footsteps. This is so weird. Obviously, he was still chasing after me for a second. Why did it seem like he had disappeared at this time? I waited silently for a few minutes, but nothing happened. So I quietly poked my head out to take a closer look, but I didn't see anyone. It was so weird. Where did he go? I returned to my original position, feeling very anxious. What the hell is going on here? Did I really get rid of him? Suddenly, a drop of warm liquid dripped on my forehead. I wiped it and found that it was red. It was blood. At that moment, my whole body was stiff. I raised my head mechanically and met Charles's bleeding eye that was cut by me earlier. "Hey, my love, are you looking for me?" He smiled brightly, and his left eye was fixed on me, as if he was going to eat me raw in the next second. He was above me this whole time. This was the first time in my life that I felt this suffocating fear. I jumped up trying to escape, but was caught by Charles's claws and fell to the ground. His sharp nails pierced my shoulder, and I felt a sting. Charles has shifted back to his human form, giving me a wicked smile, and then hit my stomach with his knees. My mouth was instantly flooded with blood, and I lost my balance and fell to the ground. Charles put his hand to his mouth and put on a creepy smile. His blood-red eyes stared at me. Then he stuck out his tongue and licked the blood from his fingertips. His eyes were still bleeding, but he didn't seem to feel the pain at all. "He looks like a lunatic." Sweet," he said with a satisfied smile. "I can't wait to swallow you up, little traitor." Before he finished speaking, his body was already moving. I looked at him without fear, and the corners of my mouth twitched slightly. I've been procrastinating long enough. Charles's eyes finally changed when he saw my smile. He slowed down in surprise, but it was too late. A wolf howl sounded from above, and all I heard was a bang in an instant, and before he touched me, his whole body was thrown out like a garbage bag. "You dare to touch my woman, Charles," Athan said coldly. He turned to help me up and took a closer look at the wound on my face. "Are you all right?" he asked with concern. I shook my head and told him I was fine. In fact, Athan had told me long before I left the cell that he had a plan. When you see the lichen, it means my plan worked. Before I left, he leaned in my ear and said, "Remember, protect yourself and stall as long as you can. I will get us out of here." Heh, interesting. Charles coughed out a mouthful of blood, stood up with difficulty, and said with a smile, "I didn't expect you to run out. However, this is not your pack. This is my territory." Charles raised his head and let out a whistle, followed by wolves in all directions. Athan stood in front of me, reaching out to block me. Half of Charles's face was covered in blood, which made his smile even more terrifying. His laughter grew louder and his voice became shrill and twisted. "Athan, it's no use even if you escape from the cell, because you can never leave this factory. You and your woman will die at my hands today." Athan smiled lowly. He took a step forward and asked calmly, "Does your right eye hurt?" The only remaining eye of Charles showed a fierce light, and his tone became fierce again. "Don't worry about me. I will gouge out your woman's eyes with my own hands. This is the price she will pay." Athan shrugged and spread his hands. "I'm afraid you have no chance." Charles's expression didn't change. "I thought you were my strongest opponent, but it's a pity that you fell in love with a woman. And this woman has lowered your IQ and messed up your judgment. Do you actually think that with just the two of you can escape my territory alive?" Athan raised his hand and touched his wrist, twisted his neck slightly to the right, and said slowly, "Oh? Really? Did you really think I would come here alone?" As his words sounded, there was a sudden burst of screaming sounded. In an instant, the wolf howls, roars, and gunshots were raised everywhere. The smell of blood soon filled the air, and Charles's expression became shocked. I looked around and found that, not far away on the roof, Finn knocked down a werewolf who had been following Charles and turned to look at us. Meeting my eyes, he gave me a slight nod. Not only did Finn show up, but all of Athan's deltas had also been lurking in every corner of the factory for some time, and they showed up immediately after Charles attacked us and quickly subdued them. An insignificant rogue king who wants to rule an old and heartfelt pack by taking down their leaders, Athan sneered at Charles, who was still processing the fact that he was ambushed. Athan walked slowly up to him and stopped in front of him. "Should I call you ambitious or naive, my dear brother-in-law?" Charles stepped back in disbelief. He shook his head and looked at Athan. "Wait, it's impossible. I was so close to that position." "Well, do you have anything else to say now?" Athan asked him with a smile. "If not, I'll take you back and put you on trial." "Heh, not just yet." Charles laughed at Athan and said, "Even if you get out of here alive, the Lycan won't let you go easily. Long before today, I spread the rumor in the Lycan's pack that you killed Emma Smith and put the blame on your sister. Although it now seems that the Lycan thinks Amelia is the murderer, I have already prepared evidence to prove that you did it." "Is this the evidence you are talking about?" Before he could finish his sentence, Finn jumped down the roof and interrupted him. He held up a stack of photos, and on the photo, it was the crime scene of Emma and a big black wolf beside it. With that iconic black hair and golden eyes, anyone can recognize this wolf as Athan at a glance. Charles's eyes widened, and he seemed unable to believe the situation in front of him. But soon he calmed down and said with a sneer, "So what if you intercepted the fake evidence I made? Do you really think the Lycan won't suspect you? I made the scene of Emma Smith's death myself, and there are still many clues left at the scene." "Are you saying that you kill her just so you can frame me?" Athan quickly asked. Charles smiled with pride. "That's right, and that stupid bitch didn't believe it until the end." Athan and Finn breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. They looked at each other and shouted at the back of the wall, "Please come out. This is the confession you want." Suddenly, a figure emerged from behind the wall. The man was moving so fast that I could barely see his face, and I only felt a gust of wind passing by. The man fell in front of Charles, and he quickly pinched him by the neck and pushed him against the wall. It was the Lycan. His upper body had been shifted into a wolf, but his lower body was still upright. He opened his mouth and snarled wildly at Charles, and it made me feel terrified from the bottom of my heart. The Lycan did not hesitate in his movements. His right hand and claws stabbed into Charles's left chest fiercely and aimed at his heart. Ow! A miserable cry echoed in the narrow alley, and I could hear the sound of flesh tearing. "Wait!" Athan shouted, and then he quickly stepped forward and grabbed the Lycan's hand and whispered, "He can't die yet. There are many things he needs to tell us." "I don't care. If he dares to deceive me and use me, I will kill this bedbug immediately and feed him to my subordinates." The Lycan's forehead burst into blue veins. His eyes were reddish, and his head turned slightly to the side. Athan said, "If you don't want to get hurt, don't be my way." At this point, his hand was fully inserted into Charles's chest, and I guess he had pinched his heart. "Don't you want to know who he's planted beside you?" Athan said quickly, glancing eagerly at Charles, who was almost fainting in pain, and yelling at him, "If you still want to live, say what you know. I'll say it. I'll say it all. Don't kill me. Spare my life." Charles's voice was weak, and he fainted as he shattered the words. "Sir, I'm sorry, but please think clearly. I understand your anger, but if you kill him now, then your forbearance against him will be meaningless. Don't worry. When we're done using him, he is all yours." Athan bowed his head slightly. I had hardly ever seen him speak to anyone so respectfully. After a moment of silence, the Lycan jerked his hand out, and Charles, who had passed out, slumped to the ground. I can't help but breathe a sigh of relief, but at this moment, a crash sounded, and Athan was kicked several feet away. "Athan!" Seeing this, Finn immediately wanted to rush up to help him, but was stopped by Athan reaching out his hand. He covered his chest and gasped, then propped himself up on the ground. The lichen said grimly, "Don't try to challenge my authority again. Next time I'll kill you." Athan spit blood on the ground, smiled and nodded. "Today is an emergency. Sorry, I offended you, my king." He stood up straight, looked at the lichen calmly, and said slowly, "So is it time for you to thank me now?" The lichen raised his eyebrows as if he didn't understand what Athan said. "Thank you? It's my gift to you that I don't kill you." The aura around him became icy cold, and it was clear that Athan's words deeply angered him. This was the lichen. No one had ever dared to speak to him like that. I took a sneak peek and saw Finn gasp and hold his breath. "No, you're wrong," Athan looked up. "Without me, you would never have found the real murderer of Emma. You know, your pack once served my pack in ancient times." The lichen frowned and said slowly, "And I could kill you, and you mate, and everyone in your pack just by myself if I want to. Oh, and don't forget, Charles is from your pack, so you are also responsible for Emma's death." The atmosphere was tense, and I could feel that Athan would never show weakness to anyone, even to the lichen. And if they really fight with the three of us, can we really beat the Wolf King? I don't think so. Athan didn't seem worried about that. He shrugged and smiled. "But you would never, because you don't want to ruin your reputation, right?" The dignified lichen got angry and killed his benefactor. "Will other packs respect you as much as they do now?" The lichen raised the corners of his mouth. He did not answer Athan's question, but said, "Young man, you are brave and smart. Then this scum will be handed over to you for interrogation, and I will give you 3 days. After that, you have to give him to me." After he finished speaking, he hooked his hand in the air, and a brown wolf jumped to the ground. I was speechless in astonishment that it didn't make any sound when it hit the ground. If the lichen was going to kill us just now, I don't think any of us would survive. The alley was quiet, and Finn didn't let out a sigh of relief until the lichen had left. At this time, Athan held his chest and spat out another mouthful of blood. I quickly stepped forward to support him and asked anxiously, "Are you okay?" Athan hugged me and kissed the tip of my ear lightly. Then he buried his head in my neck. "I finally got you out." I felt warm in my heart, and before I could speak, I heard footsteps behind me. Before I could react, I had severe pain in my back, and when I looked down, I saw a sharp dagger pierce through my chest. Finn quickly stepped forward and held down Charles, who had woken up at some point. I struggled to turn my head to look at him, only to see him screaming hideously at Athan, "As long as she dies, you won't be able to live! Ha!" It turned blood red before my eyes, and the blood rained like a few stars scattered from the sky. Athan hugged me tightly as he called my name over and over. He was trying to keep me awake. "Catherine, honey, don't move! Stay still!" Both his hands were holding my head, and I saw tears swirling in his eyes when I looked at him. Charles was still laughing wildly, as if he were the biggest winner of the day. It took some effort for me to turn my head to him, and there was something I had wanted to tell him for a long time. "Hey, dumbass, I've been meaning to tell you something," I called him, and he raised his eyebrow and looked at me, with that crazy smile on his face. My whole body was like a broken balloon, and it was hard enough for me to just simply smile. I stretched the corner of my mouth at Charles, and honestly, I would make sure to be as sarcastic as possible if I could. I slowly said to him, "Athan never marked me, so even if I die here, he won't be affected in any way by it." It took all my strength to finish my sentence. My eyelids became heavier and heavier, and I felt very tired. But I was still very happy, because Charles seemed to have received the most fatal blow after hearing what I said. He looked at me blankly, his mouth widened, but he couldn't say a word. "Kath, stop talking. Stay with me. Stay with me." Athan hugged me tighter. Something dripped in my eyes when I turned to him, and it was a drop of his tear. The wound on my chest was still bleeding, and I felt my extremities getting colder. I put my finger on his lips and cut him off. "Athan, promise me you will take care of Mike and Lily." He shook his head desperately. "You're not going to die. Mona will be here soon. Don't worry, you'll be fine. I will take you home." He's still talking, but I can't really hear it. My senses gradually became less sensitive, so I stared at him with wide eyes and repeated, "Promise me, Athan." His lips moved and he responded to me, but I couldn't hear it. The picture in front of me became clear and blurry, and I only remember his tears soaking my fingers. I wanted to tell him not to cry for me, but I found that I couldn't make any more noise. The next second, the whole world turned into endless darkness. Did I just die? I probably did. Wait, but if I was dead, why was I still talking to myself? Just then, I snapped my eyes open. I looked around, and there was darkness only. I suddenly heard Mona's voice. You should go and rest. It's been 3 days. I'm fine. No, you are not fine. Also, don't try to torture yourself to make yourself feel better. If it weren't for you, Catherine would never have been through this. I know, it's all my fault. Athan, Mona, I called them tentatively, but got nothing back. Therefore, I raised my voice and shouted, I'm okay. I'm not dead yet. Can you hear me? All that answered me was endless silence. Just then, my ears moved involuntarily. It was my body's conditioned reflex when I sensed danger. Immediately afterwards, a low snarl came from the darkness. I quickly backed up. How could there be a werewolf here? The wolf howls became more and more intense and louder, and then came the sound of footsteps. I could no longer think about it, so I turned around and ran. However, the wolf behind me was so fast that I could even feel the breath spraying on me as it approached me. I knew it would catch me if I went on like this, and now I could only turn around and fight back. I took a deep breath, stopped abruptly, turned quickly and kicked behind me. But there was nothing there but air. In the half second that I was stunned, someone suddenly appeared from the side and knocked me down. I closed my eyes subconsciously, tensing my muscles, waiting for the pain of falling to the ground. However, I fell into a soft flower bush. The fragrance of lavender filled my nostrils. I opened my eyes, but saw a pair of familiar golden pupils. My mate, my Luna, he murmured. Let go of me. Let me go. Athan, I shouted. However, he didn't seem to hear what I said. His big hand caressed me wantonly, and a familiar sense of fear made me sweat. What was happening right now? Why did I go back to that night 5 years ago? I thumped Athan on the chest hard, but his arm got stuck in mine and I couldn't get out. No matter how I called his name, he didn't respond. This memory was my deepest fear, and the turning point in my life started here. With a burst of strength out of nowhere, I slammed into Athan's head hard, then broke free without him noticing. I stood up in a panic, and when I looked up again, the picture in front of me had changed again. Athan smiled at me, but his hand was around Mike's neck. No, don't hurt my son, I yelled in horror. Athan laughed wickedly, and his facial features began to change slowly, turning into the appearance of Charles. Charles looked at me with a smile and said slowly, Kill him, kill Athan's child. My body suddenly became stiff. I wanted to step back, but I was moving forward involuntarily. Mike looked at me with tears in his eyes, but I couldn't control my actions at all. I saw myself raise my claws and stab my son hard. No! I sat up screaming, only to find I was in my room. It turned out that everything just now was just a dream, and I survived. I stared at the chandelier on the ceiling, and the images in my mind kept replaying like a slideshow. Within just a few days, I seemed to have experienced all kinds of situations in life. From the first time I got caught by Charles to the time I got stabbed, my memory was still a huge chaos. My left chest was still aching, and I could clearly recall the strange discomfort when the cold blade pierced my heart. My body was like a running machine that suddenly leaked electricity and gradually stopped functioning. I remembered trying my best to open my eyes, but I couldn't help but want to sleep. Luckily, I survived. The door was knocked from the outside, and a slender figure walked in. It was Mona. Hey, how are you feeling? She asked softly. According to Mona, I woke up an hour ago. Actually, I didn't remember much of what happened from waking up until now. I just felt like a flood of memories suddenly rushing into my head, and I was like an overloaded processor, and I couldn't tell which of those memories were illusory and which were real. I took the steaming hot tea from Mona and took a sip. The fresh tea filled my mouth instantly, but the bitter taste that stayed on the tip of my tongue made me frown. What kind of tea is this? It's bitter, I asked. This is the herbal tea I specially brewed for you, with several herbs in it, which will speed up your recovery. Mona took the teacup and put it on the nightstand. She grabbed my hand lightly and sighed in a low voice. This time you really scared me, Catherine." I looked at her delicate face and felt a little sad. She used to be so happy and carefree, but now she had been implicated for no reason because of me, and she had even been in danger several times. I took Mona's hand back and said sincerely, "I'm sorry, and thank you, Mona." She smiled at me and patted my hand. "How do you feel? Do you want to sleep a little longer?" I shook my head and couldn't help looking at the door that was still open. "He's not there," Mona said bluntly, seeming to know whom I was looking for. Today was supposed to be the day to hand Charles over to the lichen. Was supposed to? What happened? What happened to Charles? A bad premonition came to my mind. Mona sighed. "After Charles stabbed you, Athan went outraged and broke his neck on the spot. Finn tried to stop him and nearly got hurt by him." I sat up suddenly. My violent movements accidentally tore the stab wound on my chest, and I only felt a throbbing pain in my chest. I gasped for a few breaths, my eyes darkened, and I almost fainted. "Be careful, your wounds haven't healed yet." Mona anxiously supported my shoulders, raised a teacup, and fed me a few sips of herbal tea. The warm tea soup slowly entered my stomach, and it took me a while to finally feel better. "There is nothing you can do right now, and the most important thing now is to get well soon." Mona slowly helped me to lie down, and then said, "Athan left with Marcus early this morning, leaving me and Finn to take care of you. And the children. The lichen must be angry. I'm worried." I couldn't help but think of the enraged Wolf King I saw that day. His power and speed were horrifying. "Don't worry," Finn said. "The lichen wouldn't do anything to Athan. He wouldn't easily be an enemy of any pack. But if there were no Charles in exchange, he probably wouldn't let Amelia go easily." Mona straightened my hair for me and said in a serious tone, "But none of this has anything to do with you. All you have to do is get well soon, even if it's for Mike and Lily." The thought of my children filled me with guilt. They must be horrified that I have disappeared for so many days as their mother. Mona probably saw through what I was thinking, and she comforted me softly. "Don't worry, both of the kids are very sensible. Mike even told me to tell you that he will take good care of his sister so you don't have to worry." "What day is it today? Did they go to school?" I asked. Mona shook her head. "I expected you to wake up today when I checked you out yesterday, so I took time off for them. Wait here and I'll bring them up now." "Mommy." Lily ran into the room. She looked very excited and wanted to jump onto me, but was pulled by Mike next to her. "Be careful, Mummy is still sick." After that, the two children approached me cautiously. Each took one of my hands and hugged me gently with Mona's permission. I put my chin on Lily's forehead, rubbed Mike's hair with my right hand, and the unease in my heart was slowly dispelled by my children. Yeah, as long as my kids are okay, then I'm going to live strong too. I had never been so grateful that I was alive right now, so I could hold my children and continue to protect them. "I'll leave you guys alone," Mona smiled and said. Joy filled my heart, and I wanted to let go and take a closer look at the little faces of my children. However, something was wrong. An inexplicable sense of fear surrounded me. My left arm holding Lily became tighter and tighter, and the fingers of my right hand behind Mike's head tightened, and my body became stiff little by little. This familiar feeling. Every time I got controlled by Charles, I felt the same way, that I knew my every move, but I couldn't control my behavior at all. That was what it felt like right now. "Mona, wait, take them away!" I shouted. I watched in horror as my hands started hurting my kids. Mike and Lily hadn't even noticed I was acting strange. Maybe they thought I was just trying to hold them tighter. And only I knew that if they didn't leave now, my hands would crush their heads. "Catherine, are you okay?" Mona stepped forward, puzzled. "Take them away!" I shouted again. I could feel tears run down my cheek, and I felt despair. "Mummy, it hurts," Lily whispered with a shaking voice, and Mike seemed to sense something, his face becoming serious as he tried to push my hand away. Mona finally realized what was going on. She rushed forward and twisted my arm hard, pulled Lily out, and grabbed my fingers on Mike's head with both hands. "Get off! You're gonna kill him!" With all my willpower, I tried to resist the rigid urge to kill, but it didn't work. Not even a little bit. Mike cried out in pain. A child's skull is so soft that I knew clearly that I could crush it without much effort. Mona made a quick decision. She grabbed my index finger and thumb and folded them in the opposite direction hard. The clear sound of bone dislocation sounded. Severe pain came from the fingers of my right hand, but I was filled with relief. Because Mike finally escaped my hand. After a brief rejoicing, I looked at my hands in horror. Why was I still controlled by Charles, even though he was dead? Mike and Lily hid behind Mona, looking at me a little scared. My heart hurt as if it was pierced by countless needles. My kids, my babies, I almost killed them. Mona was the first to respond. She squatted down and touched Lily's head, wiped the tears from Mike's face, and said, "Mike, take Lily downstairs to find Finn. He bought you some new toys." Mike nodded, took Lily's hand, and ran away. Lily hadn't recovered from the terrifying scene just now. Her shoulders twitched while she left, and she was still crying. Mona closed the door behind them, walked quickly to me, and checked my pupils nervously. After a long time, she breathed a sigh of relief and grabbed my hand to reset my fingers. "Hold on, it will be fine soon." After she said this, she pressed her hand hard, and my fingers reset. "That was so weird," Mona muttered as she gently massaged my hand. "I've been alone with you for so long, and you haven't been aggressive towards me. Why did you just—" I turned my stiff wrist slightly, and my whole body was stiff and cold. Mona was rig. That was so wrong, and it's like I was cursed. Suddenly, I had a flash of inspiration. I grabbed Mona's arm with my hand and said nervously, "Ancient sorcery, we have to find the witch who cursed me." When I was first caught by Charles, he locked me in a dark basement and did something to me. After I woke up, she told me, "This is an ancient witchcraft that only a pure-blood witch family can master." It seems that whatever this ancient sorcery was, it would not go away with the death of Charles. To break this witchcraft, I must find the witch who cast it. My brain was so messed up, and there was a dull pain in my heart again. Mona held my shoulders and said in a loud voice, "Take it easy. I'll go find that witch. No, take Mike and Lily back to my apartment, as far away from me as possible." I grabbed her arm. "I'm afraid I'll hurt them, and you are the only one I trust." Soon, Mona left with the children. Before leaving, the two children stood at my door for a while and told me loudly that they loved me. Their childish voices seemed to be hammered against my eardrums. I swore to myself, I must break the spell as soon as possible. Finn came to my room after sending Mona and the kids away. He didn't mention what happened before, but he started talking about Athan. "You should have heard from Mona, and there's been no news from Athan since he left this morning." His voice was serious. I nodded and sat up against the edge of the bed. "Did he say anything before he left?" Finn nodded. "He said, when you recover, you can decide for yourself whether you and the children want to stay or leave. He won't interfere." This made my heart sour. Every time I thought of Athan, my heart seemed to be filled with emotions that were about to overflow. But the matter between us was too long and too complicated, which made it impossible for me to discern what kind of feelings I had for him. Because of the attraction between mates, he fascinated me and made me want to get close to him. But at the same time, he brought endless danger and pain to me and the children. I've long since figured out how much love, how much hate, or whether it's all sexual attraction in my feelings for him. Seeing my silence, Finn continued, "Don't worry, the Lycan would never kill Athan. And even if he did, Athan wouldn't be able to escape. It's just that there's no way to find a witch. Inform him." I nodded, actually. I didn't intend to let Athan handle this. It's about my kids, and I'm going to take care of it myself. That afternoon, Finn and I briefly combined what we knew about Charles from each other, only to find that we seemed to be hitting a dead end. The reason is simple. We had no idea where to start looking for this so-called witch. Charles and Emma were both dead. Amelia was still in the hands of the Lycan, and we had no way to start. Finn told me after a few phone calls that he had inquired about some pure-blooded wizarding families, and this news gave me even more headaches. Under normal circumstances, ancient wizard families had clan rules, and they would never allow wizards of their own family to cooperate with werewolves and interfere in the affairs of werewolves. At the same time, they used the blood of someone's heart as medicine to achieve the purpose of controlling people, which was a very powerful and evil witchcraft that orthodox wizards were disdainful of learning. Therefore, there is a high probability that the witch who cursed me before was not a member of the wizarding family. The so-called wizard became a mysterious being, and Finn and I fell silent at the same time. Suddenly, I was reminded of the werewolves who worked for Charles when I was locked up in the factory. Finn, can you still find Charles's gang, those who worked for him? I'll try to look around. 2 days later, Finn brought back a filthy, skinny werewolf. The sunlight from outside the window spills into the living room through the spacious window and is reflected on the marble floor, revealing a warm light. I was sitting in the spacious living room with a filthy man standing in front of me. I met him just a few days ago at Charles's factory. After 2 days of recovery, my body recovered a lot. Except for the pain in my heart, my physical strength had basically returned to the previous level. However, my mood never relaxed for a moment. I was haunted by nightmares. Every night I dreamed of killing my own children with my own hands, and sometimes I would dream of Charles's vicious voice and wake up in a cold sweat. Don't kill me, please," the man cried and begged. His face was bruised and swollen up, and his whole body was shaking. "What's your name?" I leaned forward and asked him. The man obviously recognized me. He bowed his head and didn't dare to make eye contact with me. His voice was shaking. "Collins, my name is Collins." "Okay, Collins." I stared at him. "Where have you been?" Collins glanced nervously behind him, as if remembering some horrible experience. Seeing this, Finn, who was behind him, kicked him fiercely and said in a vicious voice, "Say it!" "I'll say it. I've been wandering around the bushes. I heard the whole pack was searching for our people, and I didn't dare to go home or appear in the crowd," he said quickly. I looked at Finn and he nodded. "Our guys did find him in a jungle near the pack." "Tell me about witches, Collins." I sat up straight, looking down at the trembling man in front of me. "I have to say, Athan's Delta Force is really good. I remember this man was a high-status man next to Charles, and at this moment was shivering in front of me, a skinny female werewolf." Collins explained that Charles had been researching ways to control people for many years, and he seemed to have a perverted desire for control. He had even been drugging Amelia to make her irritable and jealous, but obviously, Amelia didn't know it. They were not mates at all, and they only married to make each other stronger. Perhaps seeing the strength of the full moon pack, Charles wanted to show the relationship between Amelia and Athan so that he could profit from it. Collins said he had only seen the witch twice and couldn't see her face clearly. "You've never seen her face? Or are you still hiding it for your leader?" Finn put his hand on Collins' shoulder, his tone full of threats. "Remember, you're only alive because you're useful to us. If you dare to lie to us—" "I dare not. I'm telling the truth. The wizard is said to be a werewitch, but was expelled from her family many years ago. She is not controlled by anyone, and she does deal with anyone who can provide her with what she needs." Collins said loudly, eagerly wanting to prove his worth. "She loves to eat human babies, but she never hunts them actively. Charles regularly captures a batch of human babies and gives them to her in exchange for the witch's help." "I trust you," I nodded at him. "But I have to find this witch now. Do you know where she lives?" Collins hesitated, and Finn behind him slapped him on the back of the head without hesitation, making a loud noise. In an abandoned subway station in the city center, where the witch lives." I glanced at Finn, and neither of them thought it was the answer. A mysterious and dangerous werewitch, living in the underground of human society. Finn's expression was a little angry. He spat, gritted his teeth, and said, "You can't see the mouse." That night, I put on a black cape and took Collins to the center of the city with Finn. We chose late night because Collins said the 2 times he saw the witch was late at night in a dimly lit environment. This witch was obviously very strange. She had no fixed place and no mercy. She ate children, studied vicious witchcraft, and seemed to be very powerful. But why did she hate light so much? Or was she afraid of the light? It was a late night on a weekday, so there weren't too many pedestrians on the street. A few homeless people were sitting at the corner of the street, and when they saw us in black robes, there was no response. The night had put a cold coat on the city. The warmth and beauty of the day no longer existed, and only the dark side of the bad seeds was left. Following Colin's guidance, we came to the entrance of the abandoned subway station. Even a werewolf with excellent night vision has a limit of vision. I stared at the dark entrance in front of me. There were several seals scattered on it, and a shabby wooden sign stood next to it to indicate that it was dangerous and not allowed to enter. After taking a slow breath, I took the lead and got in. We walked past several subway entrances in a row along the tunnel, but saw nothing. "Hey, are you lying to us? There's not even a mouse in here." Finn kicked Collins, and Collins cried in pain and fear. "No, I didn't. Just a few meters away, she should be nearby," Collins explained nonchalantly. After another few minutes, Collins stopped abruptly. He asked fearfully, "Did you hear that?" We both heard it before he said anything. Finn and I were both on our guard. The hairs on my arms stood up, and a sense of fear welled up inside me. Under our feet, there was a creaking sound that sounded like someone was chewing and laughing, and it reached our ears through the darkness in the quiet tunnel. Finn pulled a plastic bag out of his pocket, which contained a dark red liquid. I frowned at him, and he quickly explained, "I stole this from the hospital donation, to lure her out." Finn drew a cut in the plastic bag with a dagger, and the smell of blood emanated deep into the tunnel. We hid behind stone pillars by the track and waited in secret. The quiet tunnel smelled like fresh blood, and we all held our breaths. Finn was a powerful werewolf, but his face had never been more serious. I knew that his instincts kept him ready to attack at any time. Gradually, the sound under the ground disappeared, and a rustling sound came from the depths of the tunnel, followed by a series of footsteps. Soon, a black figure rushed out of the darkness. The figure was short, only as tall as a child of 8 or 9 years old. She swayed from side to side while walking, as if her legs and feet were disabled. She stopped in front of the blood bag, leaned down and sniffed, then reached out and picked up the remaining half bag of blood and couldn't wait to pour it into her mouth. I held my breath as I watched the little figure finish drinking the blood and turn around, covered in blood. In the dim tunnel, I stared at that person with all my might and finally barely saw her face. I almost couldn't help but take a step back, and I've never seen something like this before. That was a half-human, half-wolf face. The right half of her face had the appearance of an actual wolf, with fierce round eyes and thick gray hair that extended above her mouth. The rest of that face was a woman's face, and it was extremely pale and wrinkled, looking like an old woman over 100 years old. Just a glance of it was simply unforgettable. Yet this was not the strangest thing. This face began to change gradually. Visible to the naked eye, the hair on her face gradually faded, the wrinkles subsided, and her eyes became brighter. That face turned into a beautiful girl in just a few seconds. "Ha! Ha!" She laughed wildly. I looked at Finn, and we both saw surprise in each other's eyes. At this moment, a sharp scream came from the front. "No!" I hurriedly looked over, and the beautiful young girl's face seemed like a flash in the pan, and soon it was replaced by wrinkles and gray hair again, and the face returned to its previous terrifying appearance. "It's too little! Too little! Not enough! I need more!" she screamed. Collins gasped in horror, turned and ran in the opposite direction. I didn't have time to pay attention to him, just stared at the witch. Her voice reminded me of the sound of fingernails scratching against the glass, and my eardrums were almost ripped. As the witch collapsed, I exchanged glances with Finn and jumped out at the same time. Finn jumped up to the witch with just one jump, reaching out and grabbing her shoulder. However, the witch was like a loach, leaning gently to avoid Finn's hand. "Ha! Catch me if you can!" Her voice was unbearable but cheerful, like a child playing with a toy. Finn cursed and quickly grabbed the witch by the throat. He was moving fast and looked unstoppable. However, the next second, he suddenly stopped in the air. That's right, he stopped suddenly, as if he was frozen. Finn's eyes kept rolling, but his limbs couldn't move at all. The witch giggled. She raised her hand, swaying slowly from side to side, and Finn's body in the air began to sway with her. She's like a puppeteer playing with dolls, and Finn becomes her puppet. "Let him go!" I shouted at her. "Don't hurt him. We are not here to hurt you." She turned around slowly, tilted her head slightly, and showed a stern smile. "I remember you. You must be in great pain now. Ha ha." She dropped her hand suddenly, and Finn fell to the ground. I rushed over to help him up. His face turned blue, as if he was about to faint. Finn put his hands on the ground, breathing heavily, watching the witch in front of him warily. I looked up and looked at her, and it was because of her that I nearly killed my own children. She stared at me for a while and smiled softly. Her lips were bloodless, and the wrinkles at the corners of her mouth were stacked together, looking terrifying. I'm sure if she goes out for a walk on Halloween, she'll make every little kid cry. The look in her eyes made me feel extremely uncomfortable, and I struggled to look away from her eyes. "Follow me." She laughed and disappeared into the darkness. I picked up Finn and followed slowly. Her feet were lame, but she was extremely fast. We follow her through countless dark tunnels. "Where are you taking me?" I shouted at her back, but the witch's voice sounded in my mind. "If you want to live, come with me." We had already left the abandoned subway station and entered a deeper underground space. Finn was right. It really looked like a place where mice would live. There was a rotten, damp smell here and there, which was disgusting. I had never been afraid of the dark, but this situation filled me with unease right now. Gradually, the smell of rot became stronger and stronger, and after passing through a narrow sewer, we entered a small space. In the room, I called it the room for the time being, there were a lot of transparent medicine jars with small body organs in them, and larger ones with the corpses of children. I just shuddered and felt terrified. I never imagined that the witch who cursed me could be so terrifying. Maybe we shouldn't baldly follow her here, I thought to myself. In the eerie and narrow space, there were more than a dozen large and small glassware. The half-human, half-wolf witch grinned and swallowed saliva in her throat. In the dim light, I could see her face more clearly. Only then did I realize that she had an ugly scar on her face, which snaked along the edge of her half-werewolf face and behind her ears. Her grinning mouth revealed 2 rows of black and yellow teeth. Her teeth were uneven in front and back, and they were all tiny fangs, which reminded me of the piranhas I saw on TV. This space was filled with a strong herbal smell. Not only was the smell not fragrant, but it was strong and choking. It mixed with the smell of corpse and rotting, and turned into a sour and stinky smell that entered my nostrils. I tried not to inhale through my nose as much as I could, so I won't puke right away. Finn was no better than me. He frowned deeply, and his lips were very pale. I didn't know what the witch did to him just now. He looked like he was injured internally, and his movements became a little slow. We exchanged a look and saw the decision in each other's eyes. If the witch tried something bad, then Finn would shoot her with the pistol he carried in his pocket, which was our last insurance. I haven't had a guest in a long time. Her laughter was harsher than her voice, and I couldn't help but get goosebumps. "What kind of spell did you put on me? Why am I still out of control after Charles is dead?" I questioned her loudly. You're dying. Dying! Ha ha ha! Instead of answering my question, she stared at my face and laughed. My fingers clenched. What did she mean? Was I dying? Was this also part of the curse? "Shut up, old witch." Finn interrupted her unbearable laughter loudly, looking at her angrily. "How on earth are you willing to break the spell for her?" "Oh, I see. You want to live." Her eyes were red and her expression became more and more excited. She was laughing and clapping her hands and jumping up. "This is fun. This is so much fun. Shut up. Can you help me or not?" I couldn't stand her madness and interrupted her again. The witch actually shut up after hearing what I said. She stopped and stared at me. After a while, she began to look at me from head to toe, tilting her head slightly as if evaluating something. The look in her eyes made me very uncomfortable. Every time I saw her pupils, I felt like I was about to be controlled, so I looked away. However, she seemed very interested in my reaction and walked up to me step by step. The hot breath she exhaled had a strong bloody smell, and I couldn't help feeling sick just thinking about what she usually eats. "I don't help. I only do deals," she said suddenly, her expression turning to serious and normal. Before I could be surprised, I saw her stretch out 2 fingers and laughed again. "2 little children. I want to eat 2 little children. 1 boy and 1 girl must come from 1 womb. Ha ha ha! Give me 2 children, and I will help you." As she spoke, she stepped back, and her laughter turned into countless echoes, echoing repeatedly in the room. I wanted to open my mouth to speak, but I saw her stretch out her thin hand and wave it lightly, scattering a handful of gray-black powder. Finn and I hurriedly backed away from the powder, but after a few seconds we were so sleepy that we passed out. Tick, tick. When I opened my eyes, the environment around me became wide and cold, and I sat up for a few seconds before realizing what had just happened. I hurriedly looked beside me. Fortunately, Finn was right there with me. He had just woken up too, but he seemed to be collapsing, gasping for breath. If I hadn't been hurt right now, I'd rather believe what just happened was a dream, Finn murmured. I picked him up and we walked out, supporting each other. Finn, how did we get back in here? I asked him. He waved his hand. Stop! I'd rather not know. Suddenly, I was shocked. There was something wrong with the surrounding air. I'm not quite sure, but I could always feel a gaze watching us in the dark. Don't stop. Keep walking, and the exit is not far. Finn's tone was very serious. I'm injured and can't fight now. We'd better leave as soon as possible. I nodded lightly and quickened my pace, but I could feel that the person didn't leave. We walked in silence for about 10 minutes, and finally, we could vaguely see the narrow entrance from which we came. However, at this moment, a wolf howl came from behind us. A thin but tall figure rushed out of the darkness, and I hurriedly kept Finn behind me. But the man stopped in front of us. Collins? Why are you still here? It was Collins who ran away earlier. Why didn't he leave? Collins stared at us dazedly, and he didn't look like himself at all. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and said, I betrayed my master. I betrayed the oath I made. I should die. I will die. What oath? What are you talking about? Are you okay? I shouted at him. I slowly walked closer to him. I could see his eyes turned gray, and they looked blurry. What I didn't expect was that Collins suddenly took a step forward and grabbed my wrist. His unfocused eyes stared at me with blood and tears. Bring me a boy and a girl, or I will eat yours. I will eat yours. Ah! His voice sounded like the witch. It was her talking to us. The next second, Collins fell to the ground with a plop. His eyes slowly became clearer, but the blood kept coming out of his eyes. He stretched out his arms in my direction and said weakly, help me, it hurts, it hurts. He is dying, let's get out of here. Finn grabbed my arm and took me out of the spooky abandoned subway station. Only the cries of pain echoed in the endless darkness. The early morning sunlight gently illuminated the sleeping city, and more pedestrians began to appear on the streets. Finn and I wore black robes and became the most noticeable people in the crowd. Many people looked at us, but neither of us had time to care about it. What happened to Collins just now? How did he suddenly appear there? I whispered. Finn pondered for a moment, then analyzed in a low voice. Do you remember Collins said that Charles had a perverted desire for control? Before he died, he shouted that he had betrayed his master. Maybe Charles gave all those who followed him cursed. Once someone betrays him, they will die or lose their minds like Collins. Or, this witch is actually the one who controls Collins. From the beginning when you catch Collins to when he leads us to the subway station, it's all arranged by the witch. She's in control of him the whole time. I added. However, no matter which idea was the truth, it made us shudder. Instead of discussing this further, we chose to go back to the villa to deal with Finn's injury first. But when we returned to the gate of the villa, we saw an unexpected person. Marcus? You guys are back? Where is Athan? Finn asked in surprise. Marcus hurried forward to meet us, full of surprise when he saw us. I'm the only one back. Where have you been? Why is there no one in the villa? Only you came back? What about Athan? I couldn't help asking. At this moment, Finn coughed up a mouthful of blood, panting heavily, looking like he was fighting back the pain. Let's go in first, and then talk about it. Marcus picked up Finn and strode into the villa. According to the healer, Finn's chest was squeezed hard. All the bones in his arms were dislocated or cracked, and he suffocated for a long time. I recalled that the witch immobilized Finn out of thin air, and it turned out she could not only block his attacks, but also hurt people from a distance. Although his recovery ability is very strong, this time the injury is relatively serious, and he needs to rest for a day or two before he can fully recover, healer said. Marcus sent the healer out the door. He turned back and asked seriously, "Catherine, where did you guys go? Who hurt Finn like this?" I briefly told him everything, including the ancient witchcraft, the curse on me, and the half-wolf, half-human werewitch. Marcus nodded, not expressing any questioning or blaming me. "I'm going to collect all the information about werewitch and the wizarding family now. You should be very tired. Please rest for a while." Marcus nodded at me and was about to leave. "Wait, Marcus," I hesitated, but couldn't help asking, "Athan, is he okay?" "Don't worry, he's fine. He should be back in a few days if things go well," Marcus said with a smile. I nodded. "I see. Also, I'm sorry about Finn. It's all my fault." "Come on, Catherine." Marcus came back and patted me on the shoulder. "No one's going to blame you for Finn's injury. It's not your fault. We've seen you as our comrade, so we should support each other." His words made me feel a lot of shocks. Comrade. Yes, when I walked side by side with Finn into that unknown dark space, didn't I also consider him my companion? Thinking of this, I felt a lot easier in my heart. I had been alone since I was a child, and I had never experienced the support or protection of my family. But now, I had a group of friends who would always stand side by side with me. It felt good. Marcus moved quickly, and that evening he handed me a tablet with his research on werewitch. Werewitch, werewolf, witch hybrids. Werewitch normally retains the werewolf form, but can use spells and witchcraft. Because the werewitch is a combination of two powerful species, they tend to have very good intelligence and greater powers. In the description of witchcraft, I see two keywords: levitation and hypnosis. Levitation, the act of floating, flying, or raising one's body in the air by supernatural means. Hypnosis, the ability to manipulate minds. Those were the two witchcrafts she cast on Finn and Collins in an even more powerful and dangerous way. In addition to those words, there were many more, such as transmutation, the ability to alter the form structure of beings, objects; elemental control, the act of controlling and manipulating the elements of air, earth, fire, water, and weather, and so on. Based on this sorcery, I finally got a whole new understanding of werewitch. I searched all the historical records in our pack, and I didn't find any introduction to the werewitch with half-wolf face and half-human face. I suspect that the witch you encountered is probably a deformed child. Maybe her witchcraft bloodline comes from a powerful ancient wizard family, but for some reason she left her clan a long time ago, which is why no one has heard of her. Marcus said, "Obviously, the witch we were facing was even stronger than most ordinary wizards, and it was not something we could deal with at all. Marcus, please stay and take care of Finn tomorrow. I'm going somewhere," I said. "Where are you going?" he asked suspiciously. "I happen to know someone who knows where to find other werewitches." The next morning, I left very early. I walked through wide meadows and fields of fragrant lavender flowers and returned to the place I knew best. I knocked lightly on the door, and after a few seconds, the door opened from the inside. Smiling, I looked at the person in front of me, her expression surprised, and at the same time, a little scared. "Hey, Mother, how is it going?" Ann West was obviously full of surprise at my presence. Her face turned pale in an instant as if recalling some bad memory. "What are you doing here?" She hid behind the door vigilantly, her voice full of defense. I grabbed the edge of the door to prevent her from closing it suddenly. "Don't worry, I'm here because I need your help." She replied angrily, "Humph, why would you need my help? I'm afraid you are here to kill me." I ignored her sarcasm, forced the door open, and squeezed in. I looked at the place where I grew up. I used to feel uneasy and anxious every time I saw this place, but this time I felt a lot calmer. Anne behind me was of course displeased with my intrusion, but I knew she didn't dare to show it, and the last time she was almost killed by Athan was enough of a shock. "Where's my father?" I looked around and saw that she was the only one in the house. "He's out on a mission, training a new team of Delta fighters today." I nodded and asked, "And what about Thana? Where is she?" Anne's breathing became quicker, and she raised her voice. "How dare you mention Thana's name? She's been gone for months, and your father and I couldn't find her at all. It's all because of you, and it's all your fault. You filthy—" I turned my head to look at her, and she closed her mouth all of a sudden, not daring to finish the sentence. "You? What do you want from me?" Anne changed the subject and asked nonchalantly, "Do you remember the werewitch that gave you the medicine? I need you to take me to her." "What are you going to do? I've already paid the price for that. Can't you just let me go?" Anne's eyes widened in an instant. She looked very resentful and fearful, and her eyes glanced out the window. After a few glances, I didn't know if she were looking at who was more appropriate to call for help, or if she were worried that there was someone else would come with me. "Don't worry. I need to see her for other reasons. You can leave when you take me to her." A few hours later, I saw the werewitch's house. Her cabin was in a quiet spot in the woods, not too far from wolf packs. Anne took me to the door and said impatiently, "Can I go now?" "You can leave when I see her." I pointed to the door, motioning her to knock. Anne raised her hand reluctantly, and just as she was about to knock, the door opened from the inside. Anne was startled, and she took a step back with a scared look. It seemed that for any werewolf, werewitches needed to be guarded at all times. After all, they often had formidable power. A tall woman came out. She didn't look like a witch at all, and she was just a normal female werewolf. She had red curly hair, wearing a fine leather jacket, and stepped on high-heeled boots. She was very beautiful. Compared to the appearance of the werewitch I saw yesterday, I couldn't believe that these two people were the same kind of creatures. "I thought I told you not to bother me anymore." The witch frowned, her tone soft but full of ill will. She said this to Anne, but her eyes were fixed on me. "Hug, sorry, Marie. She forced me to come and find you." The witch named Marie raised her eyebrows and said clearly, "So this is your stepdaughter?" She raised her chin at me. "The medicine I provided suppressed your wolf, but now your wolf has been awakened. Are you here to seek revenge from me?" I shook my head. Marie chuckled. "Then it must be because you know you are cursed with ancient sorcery and don't have much time left." Anne turned her head to look at me with surprise on her face. I calmly said to her, "You can go now." She rolled her eyes, didn't say anything, and left quickly. After all, my life and death have nothing to do with her. Marie walked into the door and said lightly, "Come in first." To my regret, Marie told me bluntly that she couldn't help with the spell on me. "You should know that witchcraft can be very good and bad. This kind of sinister aura on you is very strong and powerful. Except for the witch who cast the spell, only the purest wizard family can solve it. Or if you're lucky, killing that witch can also lift the curse." She picked up a cigarette, tilted her head, and took a deep breath. I was a little disappointed, but I had already expected this, so I didn't panic too much. I nodded at her. "It's okay. I'm here today mainly to ask you something about werewitch." Werewitch was considered as an independent group from the werewolf group and the wizard group. They retain the power of the werewolf and the wisdom of the witch, and are very powerful and unique existences. I knew very little about it. As the saying goes, in order to beat your enemies, you have to know them first. "Are you saying that werewitch has a half-human face and half-wolf face?" Marie was also very surprised when she heard my description. She shook her head and said, "Werewitch are all wizards who can transform into a wolf. I've never heard of." I nodded. "I'm guessing she's a deformed child. She's incredibly small, and she's very sensitive to her appearance and never shows up in light." Deformed child. Marie suddenly sat up in a flash of inspiration, and she rummaged through her messy bookshelf. Her bookshelves were huge, occupying almost the entire wall, and the top row was obviously seldom read, and a thick layer of dust had fallen. "I found it!" Marie jumped down excitedly, grabbing a book with a worn sheepskin cover, and quickly flipped through it. After a few minutes, she snapped the book shut, looked at me and said, "I think I know who this freak you're talking about is. Maybe there are people in the world who can help you, Catherine Green." The parchment in Marie's hand looked very old, with writing on it that I couldn't understand, and I wondered if it was a form of witchcraft. She refused to show me the book, and the reason, she said, was because she snatched it from a wizard. While I didn't understand the cause and effect in between, I also didn't care about the book, and I just wanted to know exactly how to break the curse. The original owner of this book was a stingy man. I saved his life at the time, and he promised me a wish. At that time, I was jealous of the book in his hand, because he cherished it so much that he even held it while sleeping. I thought it was a high-level spell book, but when I finally had it, I found out that it was just a genealogy like a historical record. Marie carefully put the tattered parchment back into its original position. I suspected that if she pushed harder, the book would fall out like autumn leaves. Genealogy? Whose genealogy? I asked. The Duke family, one of the oldest wizarding families in existence. Marie said, I read this book carefully with the mentality that since I already took it, it has recorded the history of the Duke family from hundreds of years ago until recent years. So you suspect that the wizard blood of the werewitch who cursed me is from the Duke family? Marie shook her head and said firmly, It's not a doubt. I'm almost certain. According to Marie, she had doubts the first time she read the book. There were endless families of great wizards like this, and they often valued each of their clan members very much and recorded them in detail. In this book, however, several pages from 1920 to 1921 are skipped. At first I thought it was because there were no newborn babies in those 2 years. But then I accidentally dropped an invisible potion on the book when I was making a magic potion. When I opened it, out of thin air, a few new pages popped out. The extra pages tell of Ophelia, the most outstanding witch of their generation, who fell in love with a werewolf. She disregarded the opposition of the clan and left the clan with the werewolf, but was betrayed by the werewolf not long after. The werewolf met his destined mate and abandoned Ophelia, who loved him dearly. 10 months later, Ophelia died of dystocia, and the child she gave birth to was a baby girl with a half-human face and a half-wolf face. It is recorded in the book that Ophelia used her life to curse the werewolf for eternal loneliness before she died, and his descendants would all be cold-blooded devils. And this curse was also fulfilled on this newborn baby. This baby was not only ugly in appearance, but also bloodthirsty and cruel by nature, and liked to eat raw meat and living things. As a hybrid of werewolf and witch, this baby girl was extremely gifted, but she loved to study dark spells only. She was like a child born by the devil. Wherever she appeared, there would be rivers of blood. This was a huge stain on the Duke family's history, so they ran a siege on the child, trying to tie her to a stake and burn her. However, she escaped, and no one had ever seen the child again. Later, they used a spell to cover up this history of the genealogy. After listening to Marie's description, I was silent for a long time. At this point, I was almost certain that the witch who had cast me a spell was the baby girl in the book. No wonder, although she was only a werewitch, but Charles said at the time that she was from the purest wizarding family. However, even knowing this history didn't help me much with the troubles I encountered. I hadn't finished yet. Marie waved as to comfort me and continued. Before she died, Ophelia predicted that her child would grow into a nondescript dark wizard, so she left a secret weapon to her people, a weapon that could kill this child if they have to. Secret weapon? What is it? I stood up excitedly. Marie shook her head. I don't know. This is a big secret. Only people in the Duke family will know. I sighed in disappointment, stood up and said, In that case, thank you. I will find a way to find them. Wait, you may not have enough time to support yourself until you find the Dukes. Maybe you haven't felt it yet, but your willpower is being devoured bit by this sorcery. Marie stood up and pulled out a small medicine bottle and handed it to me. There are 3 pills in it. Take one when you feel like you are losing control of your body. It will suppress that power. I looked at her in surprise. You don't know me at all. Why are you helping me? Marie shrugged. If I hadn't owed Anne West a big favor, I would never have made medicines that would harm others. This bottle of medicine is what I owe you. Before I left, I sincerely thanked Marie. Today's meeting with her gave me an unexpected insight into the past of this witch who cursed me. Now, I just need to find the wizard of the Duke family, and maybe the curse on me can be lifted. Hey, Catherine. Marie chased after me, shouting after me. Don't go home yet, and try your luck by taking a walk down the street. The smell of black magic might attract powerful wizards. She winked at me slyly. Good luck. The story of the witch Ophelia shocked me a lot, but it also solved my doubts. A deformed child werewitch born with a curse, She grew up to become a dark wizard hiding in the shadows as prophesied. Thinking about it now, it all makes sense. Charles had devoted his life to figuring out ways to control people, and he and this werewitch's abilities just coincided. Now it seemed that maybe it was the werewitch who had control over me from the beginning, not Charles, which is why he needed to keep injecting his heart blood into my body to control me. I walked aimlessly on the streets in downtown Diamond City, and the abandoned subway station was nearby. There were not many people on the street in twos and threes, and I could occasionally catch a glimpse of one or two people whose eyes had suddenly changed color, but in just a second or two, they returned to their original color. At this time, my right hand was bumped by someone, and when I looked down, I saw a smiling face. It was a cute little human girl who looked like she was only 5 or 6 years old, wearing a very cute dress, dressed like a little princess. She was carrying a jack-o'-lantern in her hand, with a few candies in it. I just remembered that today is Halloween in the human world, and she is tricking or treating. "I'm so sorry. She's too excited today," a gentle female voice said, and I looked up to see a young blonde woman. She took the little girl's hand and said to her, "Lily, you need to apologize to this lady." The little girl named Lily raised her skirt with both hands, crossed her legs, and gave me an elegant princess bow. "My apologies." My heart was full of pain when I watched their backs leave. It was all because of Charles and that vicious werewitch. Not only could I not be with my kids, but I was always on the alert that I'll hurt them with my own hands. A strong hatred surged from my heart. Suddenly I felt a dizziness in my head. The anger was because I thought of Charles and that werewitch, but the faces that came to me were Athan and my children. Their smiley faces are dazzling to me, and I just wanted to find them right away and tear them apart. Ah! I covered my head in pain, and my head was about to be torn apart. I was in a cold sweat, and what terrified me most was that I could feel my humanity disappearing bit by bit. The pill Marie gave me is in my coat pocket right now, but I can't get it out. In fact, I had no strength whatsoever, and my fingers could barely lift. I tried to take a big breath, but less and less oxygen entered my lungs, and my consciousness became rigid. I was standing on the road like a frozen zombie. The passers-by gave me strange looks, but no one could save me. "Kill them. Kill them. You know you want to." A sharp laughter echoed in my head. Then I stared at my hands and took out my phone from my pocket. "No! Stop!" I shouted in my heart, but my hand couldn't stop at all. I unlocked my phone and edited a short text. "Mona, where are you now? I will go find you right away." "Don't reply. Please don't reply," I screamed inside. If I could, I would really like to bite or pinch myself to see if I can wake up. But the fact was, I saw my hand reach into my pocket again, take out the delicate small medicine bottle, and throw it forward vigorously. Following a perfect parabola, the medicine bottle fell precisely into the trash can on the street. "My moon goddess, can you send someone to save me, please?" "Miss, is this yours?" A young boy walked up to me, holding the medicine bottle I just threw in the trash, looking at me with a smile. "Such a delicate little bottle, but don't throw it away." I stared at him nervously. "Feed me a pill." I was screaming inside. The boy threw the medicine bottle, which was more important to me than life, in the air at will, and then caught it. After so many back and forths, he seemed to suddenly understand what I meant, opened the cap and shoved the pill into my mouth. Soon the red fog that only I could see dissipated. The blood in my body began to flow back and forth, and my pulse began to beat again. I felt the weight suddenly lift off my shoulders, and my stiff body relaxed. Ding! My phone rang. I picked it up and looked at it, finding that it was a text message from Mona. "Dear Kath, although I love you very much, you are not worthy of my trust now, and you know the reason. If your issue has been resolved, tell Finn to contact me. Until then, I won't tell you where I am." I breathed a sigh of relief. Mona was indeed the most competent babysitter for Mike and Lily. "Hey, I think I just saved your life. Aren't you going to thank me?" Only then did I realize that the boy hadn't left yet. He folded his arms and looked at me with a smile. He was wearing a black robe and a magic hat. He had a handsome face, and his age was around 18 years old. I guess he may be a high school student who is tricking or treating. "Sorry, thank you. That bottle of medicine was very important to me just now. I quickly thanked him. The boy held out his hand. I'm a wizard. Trick or treat. Immediately I felt embarrassed. Sorry, I don't have any candies on me. Maybe you should ask the stores. But he said indifferently, it doesn't matter. If there are no candies, you can give me something else. The cold sweat on my back had not subsided, and my heart was full of irritability. I just wanted to get out of here as soon as possible. I nodded quickly and said to him, wait, I should still have some change. Unexpectedly, the boy suddenly approached my face and sniffed it hard. Startled by his strange behavior, I looked at him suspiciously, only to hear him whisper, or you can give me the address of the werewitch who gave you this bottle. I looked at him in astonishment and saw that his facial features and skin began to change slowly. The teenage face slowly disappeared, replaced by a handsome adult man's face. Don't go home yet, and try your luck by taking a walk down the street. The smell of black magic might attract powerful wizards. I remembered what Marie had said to me before I left. It seems that it wasn't the black magic on me that attracted the wizard, but the bottle of medicine she gave me. Are you a wizard? I stared nervously at the man in front of me. Even with the disguise removed, he still looked very young, maybe a few years younger than me. Why, don't I look like one? He looked down at the black robe on his body and said with a smile, I even deliberately dressed myself up as a wizard imagined by humans. I frowned, staring at him without speaking. This person appeared inexplicably. Why did he approach me? Was he good or bad? Hey, get loose, the man glanced at me and said in a complaining tone. If I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't have saved you just now. Why did you save me? I asked him. The man blinked, took a deep breath close to my ear and said slowly, I smell black magic on you. This young man in a black robe didn't look like a powerful wizard. In fact, he looked more like a college student who had just graduated. But his eyes are very deep, and I can't read his thoughts and emotions at all. Who is he? Why is he interested in the dark magic in me? I was still thinking about those questions, but he had already walked slowly, and his melodious voice drifted into my ears. Are you going to follow me? Or are you going to stay here and die? I let go of my tense fists. Anyway, my situation couldn't have gotten any worse, and I had no choice at all. I quickly followed in the wizard's footsteps. The late autumn evening wind is a bit cool, but it can't stop the enthusiasm of the children to trick or treat. Along the way, we saw groups of children running on the street wearing cute costumes. The children's crisp voices made the streets at night extraordinarily lively and warm. Occasionally, we see adults dressed in scary costumes enthusiastically handing out candy to children passing by, but the excited children don't know that it is actually the original form of these people. The wizard took me for a walk down the street, his pace languidly and seemingly enjoying himself. I tried to get some information about him, but he only told me his name was Archie. Apart from not giving me more information about him, Archie was talking non-stop along the way, and he just thought of what to say. I couldn't help but ask, why are you a wizard tricking or treating on the street? Archie shrugged, and the corner of his mouth raised a shallow arc. Don't you realize that there are many non-human creatures in human society tonight? Some of them like to eat children. My eyelids jumped. Did he just say eat children? I couldn't help but look back at the street where I met him just now. If the abandoned subway station was not far from that street, and only a few people know that there are ugly werewitches living under that subway station, and her favorite food is human children. You know that werewitch. You know who she is, I shouted. Archie raised his eyebrow and glanced at me. I wouldn't say know her, since I haven't seen her for over 90 years. 90 years? I was stunned in surprise. How is this possible? You are saying that you are over 90 years old? Archie smiled proudly, his eyes curving with his smile, and the thick eyelashes made his beautiful dark eyes even more attractive. He doesn't look more than 25 years old. How could he be a man who has lived for almost a century? He brushed the broken hair on his forehead with his fingers and said in a clear voice, You are so funny. How can there be such a stupid werewolf in the world? No wonder Kira chose you as her puppet. You are too easy to be under control. Kira, is that her name? I was choked by Archie's words, and before I could react, he suddenly leaned in front of my face, put away his smile and said softly, "Actually, my original appearance is even uglier than Kira. Do you want to see?" I was taken aback by the weird look he suddenly made, but my actions made Archie laugh out loud. Then, without waiting for me to speak, he turned into an alley, and I quickly followed him. It was amazing that the moment I entered the alley, the noisy sound behind me seemed to be the mute button, and only the whistling wind was left in my ears. Archie raised his hand and took off the wizard hat on his head, which instantly turned into a feather, followed by his black robe. In a few seconds, his cheap-looking costume disappeared. Archie turned around, and his black eyes turned silver at this moment. His aura changed suddenly. If I had wondered if he had falsely reported his age just now, but now I believe it. The pressure he brought to me at the moment is no less than the feeling I felt when I first met Athan. The young man who was laughing at me just a few minutes ago now has a serious expression and an icy aura all over him. Before you said I know who Kira is, but my question is, how did you find out who she is? Archie's deep voice drifted into my ears. My heart was beating and I was sweating. I looked at him nervously and suddenly regretted that I had let down my guard against him. Because at this moment, I saw that his silver pupils were slowly shrinking. His body gradually became taller, his hand aimed at me grew sharp nails, and his throat let out a low growl. Archie was actually a half-werewolf, half-wizard hybrid. At this point, I was almost certain that Archie didn't just know the werewitch Kira, and he was also related to the Duke family. I guessed from the fact that he was able to call out the witch's name, and he was probably from the Duke family. I had calmed down by this point, and I could feel how powerful Archie was. He might have killed me without much effort, but I also know that he may be the only person in this world besides Kira who can save me. In a way, I had no choice but to trust that he wouldn't kill me. I exhaled lightly, raised my head to meet Archie's timid eyes after turning into a wolf, and said, "Since I have been given such terrible ancient witchcraft by her, of course, I will try my best to find a solution. I am looking for an antidote. During the process, I learned something about your family." Archie didn't answer me right away. He paused for a few seconds and slowly loosened his grip on my neck. His eyes returned to black, and in an instant, he turned back to that handsome young man. And the beast-like oppression just now seemed to be just my hallucination. "I didn't expect you to be so stupid." He took a step back and put on a smile again. "Looks like that hateful Marie still found the pages I hid in the book. So you are the wizard who lost that genealogy to her." My shocked tone changed into Archie's disgusting expression. He frowned and taught me, "I just praised you for being smart, and you turned back to a silly look. My genealogy was clearly stolen by her." I thought to myself, as powerful as Archie, how could someone steal something from him? He must have said that out of pride, not wanting to admit that he had lost to other wizards. "Hey, what are you thinking, wolf girl?" Archie asked impatiently, seeing that I didn't speak. I quickly waved my hand. "It's nothing. I just can't believe she dared to snatch your stuff." "Humph. Sooner or later I'll get it back," Archie said disdainfully. I saw that his mood eased a little and quickly asked to please. "In this case, my guess should be correct, right? You are from the Duke family?" Archie nodded, but his expression was a little heavy. "It's not a family anymore. I'm the only one left in the Duke family." I opened my mouth in shock. How could this happen? The Duke family, who has always been considered a low-key seclusion by the outside world, is actually only one wizard left alive. "How?" I muttered. Archie looked up, a little tear in her eyes, but it disappeared quickly. What replaced his eyes were burning anger. He gritted his teeth and said, "If I hadn't left a benevolent heart for her back then, it wouldn't have led to the destruction of my family." With all due respect, I asked cautiously, clearing my throat, "Are you referring to she as Kiara?" Archie didn't answer my question. He gazed at the sky for a long time and was silent. The night wind blew on my face like a cold fist hitting my cheek. I gave this sorcerer with great hatred some time, and it took a long time for his breathing to gradually calm down. "Do you want to live?" he asked suddenly. "Certainly." "Fine. If you want to live, just do what I say," Archie said. You need to do 3 things for me. Archie said that there are 3 things he can't do. He needs someone who is not afraid of death to help him, and I am the best person for him. First thing, I need to find Marie right away and convince her to join us and fight Kira. The second thing, I need to give her what Kira asked for and fulfill all her requests. The third thing, I need to give up resistance, let her completely control me, and eventually die in front of her. One of these 3 things sounds more outrageous than the other, especially the third. Do I have to die anyway? Number 1, Marie won't come with me. Number 2, I'll never catch a human child for Kira. And number 3, I can't die. I said angrily, if I die, then all this will come to me. What's the point of saying it? I turned to leave, but Archie grabbed my arm. His tone was anxious, his voice raised. Wait, I didn't say you're going to die, just look like you're dead. I stopped just then and turned to look at him suspiciously. How? Archie sighed. That's why I need Marie. Although that woman is a hateful thief, only she has the power to make the pills that will bring you back to life. How do I know you are not tricking me? I crossed my arms and looked at him coldly. The wizard who had threatened me in various ways just now was so mad at me, and he said angrily, I've already lived to be 100 years old, and I don't even bother to lie to you, the little wolf. I still stared at him without speaking. Fine, fine. Archie stretched out his left hand in compromise and grabbed my right wrist involuntarily. Despite my struggles, he began chanting a spell. A silver light flashed across our wrists, and then Archie looked up at me and solemnly said, I will cure you and save your life. I swear to you now that if I break my promise, my soul will be lost forever. The surrounding air seemed to be silent for a short half-second, but his oath sounded like a drum in my head. After the oath was completed, Archie let go of me, crossed his arms and said coldly, You can always trust me now, right? I nodded again and again, and finally couldn't help but ask curiously, I saw in your genealogy that your family has a secret weapon that can kill Kira. Do you have that weapon? Archie was silent for a moment in response to my question. Then he nodded and pointed his finger slowly at himself. He said, You are looking at it, he said sternly. I am that secret weapon. Archie Duke, son of Ophelia Duke, was born nearly 100 years ago into one of the oldest surviving wizarding families in the world, the Duke family. Contrary to what was recorded in the genealogy, Ophelia gave birth to a pair of twins that year, and the baby boy was healthy and beautiful. With great abilities, he possessed the power of a werewolf and the wisdom of a wizard, a gift from the moon goddess. However, the baby girl had a more frightening appearance than a monster, and her face was born half wolf and half human. But that was not the most frightening thing. When the baby boy made the first cry, the baby girl suddenly opened her eyes, showing her fangs and biting at her twin brother like an inhuman beast. A piece of flesh was bitten off the baby boy's neck, and he kept crying. While everyone was in shock, the baby girl was seen scratching around her body restlessly, screaming frantically. The baby girl finally spat out the bloody flesh from her mouth, which stopped the convulsions. This pair of twins from the first day of birth had overcome each other, like natural enemies. The curse on Ophelia stated in the genealogy was true, but for some reason, the curse had only been fulfilled on one of the children. In other words, she gave birth to an angel and a devil. The elders in the family discovered almost immediately the restraint power of the direct bloodline on the baby girl. But the baby girl's evil power was too great. They finally decided to use her dying mother as a sacrificing vessel and sealed the powerful bloodline suppression force in the baby boy's body in case they can't solve this natural demon one day in the future. Kira Duke. As a descendant of a powerful werewolf alpha and a powerful witch, Archie had shown strength and wisdom beyond werewolves and wizards since childhood. However, because his body was sealed with the power of his mother's blood, his young body could hardly bear it, so his grandfather took him to the mountains to cultivate his body. Archie was kept as a secret, and he was later referred to as the secret weapon in the genealogy. When Archie grew up, his grandfather died in the mountains. Archie returned to his family, only to see dead bodies everywhere and houses burning in flames. Kira brutally slaughtered everyone in the family in order to find the secret weapon that could threaten her life. Archie eventually found the genealogy in the fire, which didn't mention a word about him. He knew that this was the family's ultimate protection for him. In the raging fire, he swore to the souls of his people that he would burn to death the initiator of all this, his biological sister. The cold wind in the middle of the night rustled the leaves in the forest, and with every step I took, I could hear the sound of dry leaves breaking under my feet, as if it were the silent wailing of late autumn. The silver moon hangs in the dark night sky and becomes a street lamp that illuminates the front. The man next to me, Archie Duke, didn't seem to be in a good mood, and he didn't seem to want to look directly at the moon. I wanted to stop and ask him if he needed a break, but he didn't seem too eager to talk. We were silent all the way, and no one said anything. As we walked, a towering tree covered the moonlight above us, and Archie stopped impatiently. "How far?" He stood in front of my left and didn't look back. I looked around the darkened surroundings and identified the direction. It shouldn't be far. Her house is nearby. That was right. We were doing the first thing Archie said, finding the werewitch Marie. In fact, at this moment I was full of fear for him, especially after I heard about his life experience. I didn't expect that such an ordinary-looking wizard would bear such a heavy hatred. So did he really want to help me? Why didn't he use me and then kill me? I don't know why he told me about these past events, but at this moment, I had no way out. For the sake of my children, I must lift the curse on me, and Archie Duke was my last hope. After walking through dense woods, I saw the smoking wooden house, Marie's house. Before I could react, however, the surrounding air mutated. The dry leaves that fell to the ground seemed to have a soul suddenly. They rose out of thin air and swirled in the air to form a vortex. The wind suddenly became very loud, and I heard a mournful cry, as if some painful soul was suffering. I hunched over vigilantly, but couldn't see anything. The swirl of night and those fallen leaves blocked my vision. "Archie, is this your doing? Where are you?" I shouted. However, I didn't hear his answer, and the situation didn't get better. The wind stopped abruptly, but the fallen leaves were still floating in the air, like a hidden weapon ready to go. The sharp tip of the knife was facing my body. I couldn't help holding my breath, not daring to move. What was happening? "Catherine Green," said a nice female voice. "You shouldn't have come back here." "Marie, why are you doing this to me? I thought we were friends," I shouted at her. "Heh, if you truly think I'm your friend, you shouldn't have brought him here." The group of fallen leaves that stopped in the air fell to the ground in a split second, making a rustling sound. When Marie appeared in front of me, she asked sharply, "Where did he go?" What's going on?" I was confused. Just then, Marie's eyes widened and she looked at me in horror. She had a mouth but couldn't breathe, and her feet left the ground and stopped in the air. I reached out to grab her, but was interrupted by a voice. "If I were you, I'd stay out of this, Wolf Girl." This was the first time I'd seen up close how powerful a wizard can be. Marie was frozen in the air like a puppet. Her eyes were fixed on a certain place. I followed her gaze and saw Archie Duke slowly walking out from behind a tree. With a sarcastic smile on his face, he said slowly, "Don't you think that if you haven't seen him for a few years, you can sneak attack me again?" The killing intent in his eyes was surging, and the powerful aura shocked me. Marie's eyes were full of disapproval, but she couldn't even move a finger. "I'll let you go," Archie walked slowly to her, "but you have to promise to put away these useless thoughts. Got it?" Marie lowered her eyes and nodded stiffly. Archie waved his right hand lightly. The invisible pressure in the air disappeared instantly, and Marie fell to the ground, gasping for breath. Half an hour later, in Marie's cabin, Marie looked at Archie coldly with her arms crossed, her face angry. If eyes could be a weapon, I'm sure Archie's back has been pierced countless times by her. However, in this awkward and rigid atmosphere, he paced leisurely in Marie's room, fiddling with the decorations in the room from time to time. "Don't touch that!" Marie yelled at him angrily, and she stepped up and took a purple crystal ball out of Archie's hand. Archie shrugged and picked up an exquisite medicine bottle again, looking at it indifferently. Marie couldn't do anything about him, so she had to blame me. "Hey, look what you've done. Why did you bring him here?" I didn't know. I looked at her innocently. To be honest, I had no idea what was going on at this moment. Why is the atmosphere between these two people so weird? It's like Archie is enjoying the process of provoking Marie. "You're still as cranky as ever, little Marie." Archie turned around with a smile that made me shudder. He walked up to Marie and stretched out his hand. "Where's my book? Give it back to me." Marie stared at him hard, and her beautiful eyes narrowed into slits. After a long time, she raised her hand, and a book on the shelf instantly flew up, raising the dust of the room. Unexpectedly, the book was robbed halfway before it fell into Marie's hands. Archie turned over his genealogy and read it carefully and said with disgust, "For the sake of my genealogy is still well preserved, I will not care about your bad attitude." Marie turned her face away from looking at her, her pretty red hair tossed gently, like fiery red satin. Archie suddenly reached out and stroked the smooth hair. He leaned down and approached Marie's face with a smile on the corner of his mouth. "It's been so many years. Have you missed me? I almost want to escape the hut immediately. What was the relationship between these two people? Why did I seem to see it just now?" Archie sniffed Marie's scent lightly, like a werewolf mate's behavior. Marie stood up quickly and took a step back. Her cheeks were flushed, but she quickly regained her composure, maintaining her arrogant expression and asking, "What do you want from me?" Instead of telling you, I'll show you." He snapped his fingers, and that bottle of pills that Marie gave me earlier just flew out of my pocket and landed in his hand. Archie threw the bottle into the air and caught it. His tone was relaxing. "Catherine Green, what was the name of your children again?" His question puzzled me, and I didn't understand why he asked. Who knew that Marie turned around and asked with a serious face, "Catherine, what are their names?" I glanced at her helplessly, but the moment I opened my mouth, I realized that my mind was blank. Wait, what were their names? No, wait, what did they look like? How come I forgot about them? It was like they were wiped off my memory. For a moment, a strong sense of panic surrounded me. I looked at Archie and Marie in horror, only to see them look at each other and fell silent at the same time. I wanted to ask them what was wrong with me, but I found that I couldn't speak at all. The panic in my mind gradually turned into another emotion: killing, looting, revenge. "I'm going to kill them. I hate them." My own voice filled my head, and the voice was hysterically yelling, "Kill them. Kill them all." No, do not want. How is this going? Why am I like this? What had happened to me? I watched myself stretch out my hand, and my nails slowly grew longer. I twisted my wrist and pointed the long nails at my eyes, and stabbed it hard. "Help!" I screamed in my head. A pair of hands gripped my wrist tightly, and my nails were forced to stop less than half a centimeter away from my eyes. Marie quickly put a pill in my mouth, and after a few seconds, I gradually felt the stiff muscles gradually relax, and the irritable emotions in my heart were finally suppressed by my willpower. I escaped that suffocation again. I fell to the ground clutching my chest, and the room fell silent for a while. This curse was like a poisonous insect, recklessly eating away at my memory and my kindness in my mind. I finally felt clear this time, that it was only a matter of time before I became completely insane and lost all my consciousness. Marie helped me up and handed me a cup of hot tea. The steaming heat hurt my eyes, and a tear ran down my cheek. "See, do you understand now?" Archie said to Marie. "A part of her humanity has been lost with her memory, and I need you to seal her remaining humanity and consciousness for her until I kill that goddamn witch." He paused for a second, but didn't say Kira's name eventually. I looked up at these two people in confusion, and I felt an unprecedented fear. Every time I thought of someone I love, my chest felt warm. But today, all I felt was anger and hatred. My chest was so cold that I couldn't feel my heart beating at all. Just like a dead person. "Catherine, are you ready?" Marie looked at me and asked. I was lying on a plank bed right now, with my head hanging in the air. Blood rushed to my head and my eyes felt bloodshot. There was a circle of white candles around me, and the smell of the candlelight made me frown. Wolves are afraid of fire, and this was not an environment where I felt comfortable. "Cut the crap. Does she have a choice? Let's get started." Archie interrupted Marie and urged. I nodded at her. "I'm ready, I think." "Okay." Marie nodded at me as she walked up to me with an empty china bowl and said, Then I'll start. I clenched my fists. Perhaps because of being too nervous, my nails were deeply embedded in the palm of my hand, imprinting a half-moon mark. Marie said that what she was about to do was to shut down my humanity. To be honest, I have never heard of this kind of witchcraft, and I didn't know that a werewolf could still be after its humanity is shut down. If so, what is the difference between me and a wild beast? But when I asked that, Marie was full of dislike for my question. You idiot, do you think that I am that useless? Don't worry, I will just block your emotions, but your power and memories are all there. Maybe when you lose your emotions, you will feel freer. Heh, she said. Maybe, I don't know. But like Archie said, do I have any other options at the moment? Marie walked up to me, muttering a curse while she kicked a small strand of hair off my forehead with a knife. The sharp knife rubbed against my skin, and the cold touch made me frown. Marie walked around me with a bowl in her hand, her eyes fixed on me, and her speech became faster and hoarse. Her brows were furrowed, and her eyes turned pure black. Gradually, her steps became faster, and fine beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. I looked at her and felt a little uneasy. Suddenly, Marie stopped right on top of my head. She bent down and pressed her thumb on my forehead so hard that it almost crushed my skull. "Hold on," she yelled. Then she took out a small crystal ball, about the size of a fingernail, and slowly placed it on my chest. At that moment, my chest seemed to be crushed by unbearable weight. My sternum was about to shatter, and I couldn't breathe at all. I wanted to struggle, but my upper body couldn't move. I wanted to call for help, but I couldn't make a sound when I opened my mouth. "Catherine, focus," Marie yelled. "If you want to breathe, drop all your worries. Forget them all." "Forget about what? I don't understand." I looked at her in horror. "You must forget your pain, your sorrow, your fear, and your love," she shouted. And then she put the porcelain bowl to my mouth, and at some point, a sticky substance of liquid appeared in it. The moment I was fed that unknown liquid, my eyes turned into darkness. Immediately afterwards, a light spot appeared in front of my eyes. I didn't care about everything, and rushed towards the light spot. When I approached, I realized that the light spot turned out to be the crystal ball that Marie put on my chest just now. As if I was bewitched, I reached out and touched the crystal ball involuntarily. At that moment, the crystal ball gave off a dazzling light. I opened my eyes, and Archie and Marie were watching me nervously by the bed. "How are you feeling? Do you remember who you are? Archie asked immediately. Marie gave him an irritated look. "Shut up!" She stared at me carefully and called, "Catherine?" I couldn't help laughing. The expressions on the two of them were a little funny. I rolled over and jumped out of bed, brushed my hair in the mirror, and turned to ask, "When are you leaving? Give me your lipstick." "You want makeup?" Archie's face was full of surprise. "Yeah," I looked at myself in the mirror. Why didn't I pay attention to such a beautiful face before? It seems to be because I was always troubled by various emotions in the past. Thinking of this, I smiled and said to Marie, "Also, give me a pair of scissors." I casually took off the turtleneck sweater on my body and cut off the neckline and hem of the clothes so that it could just reveal my plump breasts and slender waist. It looks much better now. I turned around with satisfaction and said to the two wizards who looked suspicious, "Come on, let's go kill that ugly werewitch." Just like that, I teamed up with two wizards and was ready to kill the evilest werewitch ever. Late that night, I came to the entrance of the abandoned subway station, and beside me were two human children who looked less than 10 years old. "Are you sure she won't know your identity?" Marie couldn't help asking again, and she looked very cute after she became a little girl. "Not sure," Archie replied impatiently. After Archie became a little boy, his voice became very immature. This cute face, coupled with his unfriendly expression, made him look very funny. "Even if I'm not sure and there is no other way, either she will die or you will die today, get it?" He glared at me, looking not in a good mood. I spread my hands, not wanting to provoke him. They both seemed a little nervous, but I just felt a little cold in here. "Let's do it fast," I said lazily. "When I kill her, it'll be over, and I can go shopping." "Hold on." Archie's expression froze suddenly, and he whispered, "She is here." In the quiet dark tunnel, we could only hear each other's breathing. Archie's breathing quickened and Marie held it. I glanced at the two of them and said lightly, "You two remind me of my two children, that you look like you are about to cry." "Shut up, I can feel her aura already," Archie whispered. "Don't you feel scared? Don't forget that she almost killed you with a spell." In fact, she really doesn't know what fear is right now." Marie couldn't help but interject. "Stop talking, you two," Archie urged urgently. "Catherine, don't forget, you have to show that you are threatened by her. You are here today to offer her a gift to trade for your life." At this moment, we all heard the sound of small footsteps. Tick, tick, tick. There was the sound of dripping water from nowhere, followed by Kira's shrill laughter. "Hey, hey, Catherine, did you bring me my feast?" A piercing voice sounded and a short figure came out from the darkness. I tilted my head to look at her, and her terrifying face gradually became clear as she approached. Half of her face was sunken, and her wrinkles seemed to have increased again. In just a few days, she looked several years older. "I did, so don't forget what you promised me," I said. Kira sniffed at us, then she waved at Archie. "Why can't I smell them? Come closer, both of you." Marie pulled my cuff nervously while Archie walked in front of Kira calmly. Unexpectedly, Kira waved her hand. "It's not you, that little girl. Come closer." "Damn it!" Marie mumbled, and she walked forward slowly. I watched Kira's expression, and she smelled a mixture of rot and blood. Since my humanity was shut down, my awareness of everything around me has increased. Marie said it was because I had fewer distractions, so I was more able to focus on my abilities. It felt good. Not being concerned about others made me feel relaxed and safe. It was precise because of this that I had already thought about it. If we were in danger for a while, I would leave them alone and run away without hesitation. After all, they all came here voluntarily, so it's not my fault even if they get killed. You smell really good, little girl." Kira smiled softly at Marie, and then she pointed at Archie disguised. "You smell much better than this little thing." "You talk too much." I couldn't help urging, and the smell of this ugly werewitch really made me uncomfortable. "Now that you have them both, can you lift the curse for me?" Kira looked at me, a sly gleam in her eyes, and she said quietly, "Come with me. I'll keep my promise." Then, pulling Marie, she quickly disappeared into the darkness. "Catherine!" Marie yelled my name, and I ruffled my limp hair and followed them. I was so excited, and I imagined how I would unscrew the ugly werewitch's head for a while. She looked so ugly that I didn't know if her blood smelled bad. I accidentally laughed out loud. "I like you way better when you had your humanity," Archie complained after following me. I ignored his words and walked quickly through the underground tunnel to Kira's small room. In the dim light, I squinted to observe the environment inside the house. It has only been a few days since my last visit, and the furnishings in the room are exactly the same as before. However, I noticed something was wrong. What had changed? Little girl, what's your name?" Kira pulled Marie so close that she almost pressed her face against Marie's. "Betty," Marie replied tremblingly. "Very good, you are a brave girl. Now I will serve you some juice." Kira left Marie and turned around, her back facing us. "What should I do?" Marie mouthed to me, and I shrugged and made a cheers gesture. Marie gave me a resentful look as Kira turned away with 2 glasses of juice. She smiled and said slowly, "They are all too thin. I have to make them fatter." "Can't you eat one of them now to fill your stomach?" I asked impatiently. "I don't have time to wait for you to fatten them up." Kira straightened up and stared at me, her expression slowly becoming grim. "You seem to have changed a lot, Catherine Green. I remember you were afraid of me. Why are you not afraid today?" I met her eyes without fear, ready to strike. However, what I didn't expect was that Kira suddenly showed a sinister smile. "Let me guess, what is your purpose for coming here today?" "What else? Didn't you ask me to bring you 2 human children to eat?" I replied with my arms folded. "I didn't ask you, honey." Kira glanced at me, and then she turned suddenly to Archie, who had been silent. I heard teeth grinding, and Kira's back seemed to arch even more. "My dear brother, do you really think I won't recognize you because you used the disguise technique?" Archie jumped up instantly and rushed towards Kira. Suddenly, Kira spilled the 2 cups of drink in her hand on Archie and Marie. "Ah! What the fuck is this?" Marie screamed. Heh, since you like being a child, you should never turn back into an adult. Kira's laughter amplified. She looked at me and her expression became agitated. Interesting. A werewolf without humanity? Maybe I should eat you instead. As Kira's laughter filled the room, I suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of panic. I had been so focused on lifting the curse that I had forgotten about the danger that Archie and Marie were in. Archie, Marie, we have to get out of here now, I shouted, trying to keep my voice steady. But what about the curse? Marie asked, her voice trembling. Forget the curse. We have to save ourselves first, Archie replied, his voice urgent. Kira was still laughing, a crazed look in her eyes. She seemed to be enjoying our fear and confusion. We have to split up, I said, trying to think quickly. Marie, you go left, and Archie, you go right. I'll try to distract Kira. Without waiting for a response, I lunged towards Kira, hoping to catch her off guard. But she was too quick for me. She easily dodged my attack and grabbed me by the throat, lifting me off the ground. You really think you can escape from me? She sneered, her breath hot on my face. I struggled against her grip, but it was no use. Her hands were like iron tongues around my throat, choking me. I struggled feebly, but it seemed all in vain. I felt my consciousness slowly fading away, as if death had opened the gates of hell to me. But a sudden loud noise awakened my consciousness. Archie had managed to break open a hole behind Kira and was now climbing out. Come on, Catherine, he shouted, extending a hand towards me. With all the strength I had left, I kicked Kira in the stomach and broke free from her grip. I stumbled towards the hole and grasped Archie's hand, pulling myself out of the room. Marie was already outside, her face pale with fear. We didn't waste any time, running as fast as we could through the dark tunnel. We could hear Kira's screams of rage behind us, but we didn't look back. We just kept running, our hearts pounding with fear and adrenaline. Finally, we reached the exit and burst out into the night air. We didn't stop until we were far away from that place, safe from the clutches of the werewitch. We were alive, but we knew we had narrowly escaped death. We vowed to never return to that place again, and to never forget the fear that we had felt in the presence of Kira. However, we vowed way too early, because just out of nowhere, Kira jumped out with a smirk on her face. No one can escape from me today. No one! She shouted. I knew that I had to act fast if I wanted to survive. There would be no choice but death if we just do nothing. I pulled out the silver knife that I had brought with me as a precaution and prepared to defend myself against Kira's attack. But just as she was about to strike, a figure appeared out of nowhere and tackled her to the ground. It was Athan. After the long apart, I had a strange feeling inside my body when I saw him. I had never felt so happy when I see him. Maybe I was just relieved to have backup. Athan quickly overpowered Kira, pinning her down to the ground. Kira, you will pay for what you have done to my family. Your reign of terror ends now. Kira let out a piercing screech and summoned dark energy around her, attempting to blast Athan off of her. But Athan was too strong, and he was able to hold her down despite her efforts. Marie and Archie, still in their childlike state, looked on in shock as Athan and Kira fought. I knew that I had to do something to help, so I grabbed a nearby chair and smashed it over Kira's head, stunning her long enough for Athan to deliver the final blow. With a roar, Athan ripped out Kira's heart and held it up triumphantly. The dark energy dissipated, and the room was filled with silence. It's over, Athan said, panting heavily. Not yet, Archie shouted. What do you mean? I asked Archie, only saw the fear on his face. Don't forget what I was here for. I'm the secret weapon to destroy her. I need to spill my blood all over her body, and I need you to burn us into ashes. Archie smiled at me. You are kidding, right? Marie asked sadly. Do it quick. There's no time. Archie took my dagger and put it on his throat. He looked at me with a smile. Catherine, you are a good person. If I wasn't the chosen one to destroy Kira, maybe we can become friends. But now, I guess I don't have time after all. With his words ending, Archie slit his throat with no hesitation. Archie, Marie shouted his name, but soon, dark blood covered his body, and Archie would never wake up again. I froze in place, but his life was lost in front of me, and we would never have a chance to be friends again. Athan set both Archie and Kira's bodies on fire. The color of the fire was glowing green, and the fire lasted for a couple minutes before it died down. When we looked at the ground, there were nothing left. "Is she dead?" Marie asked, her voice trembling. "Yes, she is," Athan confirmed. "And now, we must leave this place and never speak of this again. We will, and make sure that no one ever knows what happened here." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Kira was gone, and we were safe. But at the same time, I couldn't forget Archie's eyes when he died. As we left the underground tunnel and made our way back to the surface, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held for us. Would I ever be able to live normal lives again? Or would we forever be haunted by the memories of what we had done? Only time would tell. But for now, we were alive, and that was all that mattered. I can't help myself. So I guess it's farewell. Marie gave me a hug and smiled at me. "Now that your curse is lifted, you should go back to your kids." I shrugged and smiled back. "What's your plan?" "Well, I'll probably travel somewhere, see if there's anyone else that needs help like you did." Marie nodded at me and she waved. "Bye, Catherine Green. Have a nice life." Normally I should feel sad, but at this moment, I didn't feel anything in particular. That's right, my humanity still hadn't come back, so I didn't really care about what Marie said just now. The only thing I cared about at this moment was Athan Buffet by my side. But of course, I only care about him physically. Ever since I saw him today, I felt incredibly physically attracted to Athan. Every time I look at him, my heart raced and my palms sweat. I couldn't help but think about him constantly and imagine what it would be like to be with him. God, he smelled so good, but the black suit cut off the peppermint smell from his body. I couldn't help but stare at him. His face, his jawline, his neck, all his exposed skin was incredibly sexy to me. Every word he said seemed like an invitation. I want him. I could hardly wait. "Catherine, I've missed you." Athan stared at me closely. His eyebrows are bushy and his eyes are bright and deep. I am almost immersed in his eyes. "I've missed you too," I said. "Really?" There was a surprised expression on Athan's face. He stretched out his hand towards me in a bewildered manner, but he didn't approach me. "I thought you still hated me. Have you really forgiven me?" "You are my mate. Why should I hate you?" I asked him suspiciously. But my answer made Athan Buffet even more surprised. "This is the first time you admit that I am your mate. Regarding what happened 5 years ago, I always thought you would never forgive me." I slowly approached Athan, put my arms around his neck, getting closer to his lips. "I don't blame you. On the contrary, I miss you very much. His scent draws me in, fuels my desire. When my lips were on his, I couldn't help but want more. I kissed him passionately, and he responded excitedly. I didn't care about anything else in the world at that moment. All I wanted was Athan. I wanted to feel his touch, his kiss, and his embrace. I didn't care about the past, the present, or the future. All I cared about was him and the way he made me feel. I wanted to seduce him and make him mine. I wanted to be the only one that he wanted, and I didn't care about anything else. I wanted to be with him, and nothing else mattered. The way he looked at me, the way he touched me, it all made my heart race and my body crave for more. I couldn't help but feel incredibly physically attracted to him, and I knew that I had to have him, no matter what. Athan's hands roamed down my back, pulling me closer to him. I felt his body press against mine, and I couldn't help but moan in pleasure. I ran my hands through his hair, pulling him closer to me. I didn't care about anything else in the world at that moment. All I wanted was Athan. I wanted him to be mine, completely and entirely. I wanted to feel his touch, his kiss, his body against mine. I pulled away from the kiss and looked into Athan's eyes. They were filled with desire and longing, and I knew that he wanted me just as much as I wanted him. "I need you, Athan," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I need you right now." He didn't hesitate. He took me by the hand and led me to his car. We kissed and touched each other eagerly, our bodies entwining as we gave into our desire for each other. I felt alive, completely and utterly alive, for the first time in such a long time. All thanks to Athan, my mate, the one I was meant to be with. I felt free, knowing that I didn't have to care about my emotions and everything became purely physical. As our lips met, I could feel the heat rising within me. I couldn't help but let out a soft moan as Athan's hands roamed over my body, pulling me closer to him. He was everything I had been craving for so long, and I couldn't get enough of him. I ran my hands through his hair, pulling him closer to me, deepening the kiss. His scent was intoxicating, and I couldn't help but want more of him. I could feel his arousal pressing against me, and I knew that he wanted me just as much as I wanted him. We finally broke the kiss, breathing heavily. Athan's eyes were dark with desire, and I knew that he was just as turned on as I was. I couldn't help but smile as I looked into his eyes, knowing that this was just the beginning of what was to come. "I've missed you so much," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I've missed you too," Athan replied, his voice husky with desire. I knew that I couldn't wait any longer. I needed him right now. I pulled him closer to me, pressing my body against his as I whispered in his ear, "Take me, Athan. I need you now." Without hesitation, Athan picked me up and carried me to the back of the car seat. As he lay me down on the car seat, I couldn't help but tore his shirts. "Mark me. Make me feel good," I whispered. But just as I was getting lost in the moment, Athan suddenly pulled away. He looked at me with a shocked expression on his face. "Catherine, what did you just say?" He looked at me suspiciously and sighed softly. "You're not the Catherine I know. What's wrong with you?" I was shocked by Athan Buffet's words. His eyes were puzzled and sad, but it all only made me feel more impatient. "What nonsense are you talking about?" I asked him. "I am Catherine. You're Catherine. Tell me, what did the wizards do to you?" Athan ignored my answer and asked. "Nothing." I shrugged. "I'm the same person from before. In fact, I feel even better than before." Athan looked at me suspiciously, as if he was judging whether my words were sincere. An irritability rose in my heart for no reason. I stood up and pushed Athan away in front of me and prepared to leave. "Catherine, where are you going?" Athan grabbed my shoulder. My patience has long been exhausted. I turned around and grabbed his face without hesitation. He had to block my hand. I pretended to be in pain and yelled, and he let go of his hand in panic. Taking this opportunity, I kicked him in the stomach fiercely. Athan's back hit the car while I was pulling away from him. "You are too boring, so I decided not to go with you." I smiled at him, but my words were full of ferocity. "If you try to stop me again, I will really kill you." After all, I turned my head and left. However, in the blink of an eye, there was a powerful aura crushing from behind me. I couldn't dodge in time and was directly thrown down. The back of my head hit the ground and it made me dizzy. "Let me go!" Ignoring my yelling, Athan Buffy snapped off his tie and tied it around my wrist. He tore the neckline so hard that 2 shirt sleeves fell off, exposing his perfect pecs. I just felt my body heat up, and I wanted to be closer to his body even more. "So you like this way?" I smiled at him charmingly. "You should have told me earlier. After all, I won't reject you." Veins on his neck could be seen, and I knew he was struggling with his desire for me. "Come on, Athan. What we want is the same. Why resist?" I continued to bewitch him. Athan looked at my eyes hazier, and his fingers gently stroked my neck, which made me tremble. However, in the next second, he tapped the back of my neck neatly. My eyes went dark, and I passed out. "Because what I want is not only your body, but your heart," he said. When I woke up again, I was in a moving car. My neck was so sore that it made me feel bad, and my wrists were tied by a rough rope. "Where are you taking me?" I asked Athan Buffet, who was driving. Seeing that I had woken up, he pulled over to check on me. As soon as the car came to a halt, I struggled to break free from the tie around my wrist, but it was too tight. Athan noticed my movements and quickly locked the car doors. "Catherine, please calm down," he said with a gentle tone. "I won't hurt you, I promise." I scoffed at his words. He had already hurt me enough by tying me up and taking me against my will. I knew I couldn't trust him, and I needed to get out of there as soon as possible. "Please, Athan," I pleaded with him. "Let me go. I need to figure out who I am now and what's happening to me. I can't do that with you around." Athan looked at me with concern in his eyes. "I understand your frustration, but I can't just let you go. It's too dangerous out there for you." "I'll take my chances," I retorted. "I'd rather be out there than be trapped with you like this." With that, I kicked open the car door and made a run for it. Athan quickly got out of the car and chased after me. He was faster and stronger. He caught up to me in no time and tackled me to the ground. I struggled against him, but he was too strong. He pinned me down and looked at me with a stern expression. "Catherine, I don't want to hurt you," he said, "but I can't just let you go like this. You need my help." "I don't need your help," I spat at him. "I can take care of myself." Athan sighed. "I know you're strong, but you don't know what you're dealing with. You're a werewolf now, and there are people out there who want to use you for their own purposes. You need someone to protect you." "I don't need your protection," I snapped at him. "I need my freedom." Athan looked at me with a sad expression. "I wish it was that simple, Catherine, but it's not. You're not just any werewolf. You're my mate, you are the love of my life, and the mother of my children." His words took me by surprise. Right, how did I forget that I have 2 kids? They are the worst. I don't want any strings attached at this moment. Before I could say anything, Athan continued, "You have a responsibility to your pack. You can't just run away from that. You need to embrace who you are and accept your destiny." "I don't have a pack," I argued. "I don't even know who I am anymore. How are you expecting me to go back and be whatever you just said I was?" Athan looked at me with a determined expression. "I will help you find out who you are, Catherine, and I will help you embrace your destiny. But you have to trust me." I looked at him skeptically. How could I trust someone who had tied me up and taken me against my will? But then again, he was the only one who could help me figure out what was happening to me. I needed to trust him, at least for now. "Fine," I said reluctantly, "but if you try anything like this again, I swear to God, Athan, I will kill you." Athan chuckled. "I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Catherine." With that, he helped me up and led me back to the car. This time, I didn't resist. I knew I couldn't get away just yet, so I had to play along. "Come on, just give me a little trust." I winked at him. "You are my destined mate. Why would I really want to kill you?" Athan's eyes were searching mine, as if trying to decipher if I was telling the truth or not. I held his gaze, my face a perfect mask of sincerity. I had to admit, I was good at pretending to have emotions, to make others believe my lies. "Athan," I continued, "I want to be the Luna, your Luna, but I can't do it with you holding me captive. I need to be free to explore my powers and my true potential. You understand that, right?" Athan's grip on the steering wheel tightened, and his jaw clenched. He was struggling with his conflicting emotions, torn between his love for me and his duty to protect the pack. "Catherine," he said in a low voice, "I can't just let you go. You're a danger to yourself and everyone around you. The curse may have lifted, but your behavior is erratic and unpredictable." I rolled my eyes. "I'm not a child, Athan. I know how to control myself. Besides, I'm not alone. I have my own pack now, my own followers who are loyal to me. I can handle myself." Athan's expression darkened. "What followers? What pack? Catherine, you're not making any sense." I smirked, knowing that my lies were getting to him. "Oh, you'll see, Athan. You'll see soon enough. But I can't do it if I'm tied up like this. Let me go, and I promise I won't cause any trouble." Athan stared at me for a moment before turning back to the road, starting the car again. "I don't know what to believe, Catherine, but I need to make sure that you're not a danger to yourself or anyone else." I sighed heavily, slumping back in the seat. "Fine, but please, Athan, can you at least untie me? I won't try to run." Athan hesitated for a moment before relenting, untying the tie around my wrist. I rubbed my wrist, trying to ease the soreness. "There's water and food in the back seat if you need it," he said, gesturing to the cooler behind us. "And if you need to go to the bathroom, just let me know." I rolled my eyes but didn't say anything. Athan was trying to be kind, but I didn't need his pity or trust. I couldn't care less. We drove in silence for a while, the only sound coming from the hum of the engine. I glanced out the window, watching as the scenery passed by in a blur. I had no idea where we were going, but I didn't really care. All I knew was that I needed to get away. Away from Athan, away from the constraints of my curse, away from everything. But how could I do that? I was trapped in this car, with no way to escape. Suddenly, the car jerked to a stop. I looked over at Athan, who had a concerned look on his face. "What's wrong?" I asked. Athan didn't answer. Instead, he opened his door and got out of the car, walking around to my side. He opened my door and held out a hand, helping me out of the car. Confused, I followed him to the edge of a clearing. where a group of people was gathered. They all turned to look at us as we approached, their expressions varying from curiosity to suspicion. "Catherine," Athan said, turning to me. "These are my pack. They're here to help us." I didn't expect that Athan would take me back to his pack. After all, most of his pack members had already settled in the urban area with him, and it just made my escape plan more difficult. He put me in his bedroom. Before going to bed, I smiled and invited him to bed with me, but Athan didn't speak. "You're a coward. How did you become an alpha, to be so timid?" I laughed at him. From the beginning to the end, Athan just looked at me with a calm face. I woke up feeling empty, like a shell of myself. I knew I had hurt Athan last night, but I didn't feel guilty about it. In fact, I enjoyed manipulating him, even though it wasn't my true self. It was like a game to me. I got out of bed and decided to take a walk. As I walked through the pack, I felt like an outsider. I could sense the fear and unease around me. People would avoid eye contact with me, and some even hurried away from my presence. I didn't care about their feelings. They were just pawns in my game, and I would do whatever it takes to get what I want. As I walked, I could feel Athan's presence following me closely. I knew he wouldn't let me go, no matter how much I hurt him. But I didn't care about his love for me. I just wanted to run away, to escape from everything. I could feel the pull of the forest, calling me to run away. It was tempting, but I knew Athan wouldn't let me go. I continued walking, trying to ignore the urge to escape. Eventually, I found myself standing in front of the pack house. I stared at it for a moment, feeling a strange sense of longing. Growing up, I never had a real home, and now I don't really care if I have one anymore. As I turned to leave, I saw Athan standing behind me. His eyes were filled with concern and love, but I didn't care. I just wanted to be alone. "Athan, leave me alone," I said coldly. "I can't do that, Catherine. I love you, and I'll do anything to help you." I rolled my eyes. "You don't know anything about me, Athan. You don't know what I'm capable of." "I don't care, Catherine. I'll always love you, no matter what." I scoffed. "Love? That's just a word. It doesn't mean anything to me." Athan looked hurt, but I didn't care. I turned and walked away, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction at the pain I had caused him. As I continued my walk, I could feel Athan's presence behind me. He followed me silently, not saying a word. Eventually, we arrived at the pack healer's hut. "Athan, what are we doing here?" I asked, confused. "I need to find out what's going on with you, Catherine. Something's not right, and I want to help you." I'd rather not, I thought, but I knew deep down that wasn't what I wanted. I just didn't know how to break out of this numbness, and Athan's constant presence was only making it harder for me. As we walked into the healer's cabin, Athan took my hand. "I won't give up on you, Catherine. We'll get through this together." I pulled my hand away, feeling a strange mix of anger and sadness. I didn't want his love, but I also didn't want to push him away. It was all so confusing. "I need some time, Athan. Please, just leave me be for a while," I said, trying to sound as convincing as possible. Athan looked hurt but nodded. "Okay, Catherine, I'll give you some space after this, but I'll be here when you're ready to talk." The pack healer, Maria, greeted us warmly and invited us in. She examined me closely, asking me questions about how I was feeling. I answered her coldly, not really caring about what she had to say. After the examination, Maria turned to Athan. "Catherine's emotions are locked up tight. It's like she's a different person. I've never seen anything like this before." "What does that mean?" Athan asked, looking worried. "It means that she's not herself right now. Something has happened to her, and her mind is protecting her by shutting off her emotions. We need to figure out what triggered this response and help her unlock her emotions again." "What can we do to help her?" Athan asked, his voice filled with concern. "There's not much we can do right now, Athan. We'll have to wait until her emotions resurface on their own." I sighed, feeling a strange sense of relief. Maybe I could stay like this forever without feeling anything. "Actually, there is one thing that we could try," Marie suddenly said. "What is it?" Athan sounded surprised. "We'll need to do some deep meditation and try to access her subconscious mind. It won't be easy, but it's the only way to figure out what's going on." As the healer started the meditation process, I felt a strange sensation wash over me. It was like a warm breeze, comforting and familiar. I closed my eyes and let the sensation take over. Images started to flash through my mind, memories that I had long forgotten. I saw my childhood, my parents, and my first transformation into a wolf. I saw the pain and suffering of those I had hurt and the joy and love of those I had saved. As the memories flooded back, I could feel my emotions coming back to life. It was like a dam had broken, and my emotions were rushing through me like a tidal wave. But suddenly, it all went away again. The great pain gradually subsided as my emotions disappeared again, and I became the same person who had no emotions again after a brief transformation into the original Catherine. Only this time, I wasn't going to show Athan that they had failed. I opened my eyes and saw Athan staring at me, tears in his eyes. "Catherine, are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. I smiled at him. "Yes, Athan, I'm okay. I'm myself again." Athan Buffet was very excited. He stroked my shoulder and asked cautiously, "Really?" I nodded. Instead of answering him, I hugged him tightly. "Great, I can finally take you to Mike and Lily. They will be very happy," Athan murmured. The atmosphere in the room became warm and happy. Athan buried his head on my shoulder and was reluctant to let go for a long time. I could feel his warm breath on my neck, and his strong heartbeat was telling me how happy he was at the moment. I maintained a faint smile, very satisfied with his reaction. At this time, I suddenly met Maria's eyes. She was looking at me suspiciously, as if she wanted to ask me some questions. "Athan, I'm hungry. Can you make me something to eat?" I asked softly. "Of course, my love." Athan Buffet immediately took my hand and asked as he walked, "What do you want to eat?" "Wait, Catherine." Maria stopped me by my name. I turned around and smiled gratefully at her. "Thank you so much, Maria. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I haven't found my true self until now." Before she could answer, I took Athan and left. I know how much Athan wished I could go back to the way I used to be, although I don't understand why I still need those useless emotions, but I have to play along at this time. It's just that Maria is very wary, and I know she's still wondering if I'm really back to normal. She will be a problem. As I expected, when we returned to the pack house, the deltas that had been guarding me were gone. Athan led me to the table and finished cooking and asked me with a smile, "All right, Miss Green, what can I get you?" I shrugged and smiled back at him. "Actually, I'm not very hungry. I just want to be alone with you." As I said that, I walked up to him, put my hand on his strong chest muscles and stroked gently. "We haven't seen each other for a long time." "Yeah, I'm sorry for letting you go through so much alone," Athan said remorsefully. "Don't worry, we still have a lot of time together in the future." I looked at him with a smile, and my other hand is already holding the table knife on the table, ready to cut his throat at any time. At this moment, the door was suddenly pushed open from the outside. I immediately let go of the knife. "Athan, there is someone outside. She's looking for Catherine." Marcus walked in and said, "Looking for me? Who is it?" I asked. "We just got here yesterday. Who would know I'm here?" "It's your sister, Thana Green." Hearing this name, a surge of hatred suddenly rose in my heart. Perhaps because all my feelings and emotions were gone, my anger and violence was amplified infinitely. Thana Green and her mother Ann West tortured me and bullied me for so many years, and I let them go in the end. Actually, ever since I lost my emotions, I've been thinking about when to go back and kill them. But unfortunately, I've been watched by Athan Buffet. Well, now, she actually took the initiative to come to me. "Catherine, didn't your father say that Tana left her pack and disappeared after what happened last time?" Athan asked me, because I once asked him to help me find out Tana's whereabouts. "Yeah, I've been worried about her." I put on a look of relief and said to Marcus, "Please take me to meet my sister." "Wait," Athan stopped me. "Let me talk to her first. I don't want to give her another chance to hurt you." "It's okay, Athan," I said with a smile. "I'm sure she won't. If I sense danger, then I would mind link you right away, okay?" After Athan Buffet repeatedly confirmed with me, he finally agreed to let me meet Thana alone. It's ridiculous. He's always been worried about my safety, but he didn't know that it's not me that he should be worried about at the moment. Marcus led me to the door of the reception room of Pack House and left. After confirming that he was gone, I pushed the door open. Seeing me coming in, Thana Green hugged me excitedly. Long time no see, Catherine. I pushed her away violently. Did I lose my memory? When did the relationship between us become so good? As I spoke, I stretched out my hand and grabbed her throat. Thana backed away abruptly. She dodged my attack and jumped back to put distance between me. Marie is right. You still haven't regained your humanity. Does Athan Buffet know all this? Shut up. I should have killed you and your disgusting mother. I brushed my hair impatiently. Thana laughed. I didn't expect to see you, Catherine Green, turning into a cold and cruel she-wolf. It's quite interesting. Cut the crap. I will kill you today. I rushed forward, but I didn't expect my arm to be tightly grasped by Thana. Catherine, don't rush to kill me. I'm the only one who can help you now. Thana said with a smile. Let me guess, Athan Buffet is so powerful, you can't escape his control by yourself. But I can help you get out of here. She said exactly what I most want to do right now. I stared at Thana coldly for several seconds, then let go. Fine. Help me get out, and I won't kill you. I do have one condition, though. Thana's eyes turned sharp. I need you to keep quiet until late night, and don't draw any attention, especially not killing anyone. I looked at Thana and laughed lightly. Of course, I'm not an idiot. All right then, now you should go back to Athan Buffet, pack some stuff and wait for my signal. I glanced her coldly and said, Don't try anything, Thana, or I will tear you apart. As soon as I walked into the room, I fell into a warm embrace. That was Athan Buffet, and he seemed to be waiting for me. Hey, are you all right? He asked gently. I responded positively to his hug and said with a smile, Of course, I haven't seen Thana for a long time, so I'm happy. Can she stay here for a few days? Of course, whatever you say. He kissed my forehead lightly. The faint smell of mint on Athan's body made me so hot that I wanted to throw him down immediately. Too bad I need to pretend like I'm back to normal, which my old self would never have done. Athan, I'm feeling a bit tired, and I want to take a nap, I said. Athan Buffet stroked my cheek softly, smiled, and said, I wish I could take a nap with you, but I need to leave for a while. I may be back later tonight. I smiled at him and said, Don't worry about me. I will stay right here until you come back. After I said it, I gently kissed on Athan's lips. He was surprised I did it, and left with a big smile. Well, I only did it to make him believe that I was the same old, innocent girl he loves. I stayed in my room for a little longer, and made sure no one was watching me before I leave. The evening sky was glowing orange, and a crescent moon showed a very faint outline in the thick clouds. After I jumped out of the window, I walked towards a place along a path. I didn't meet anyone along the way, and the few werewolves I met occasionally were talking with each other, and no one cared about me. It seems Athan Buffet is so convinced that I'm back to normal that he's removed all surveillance of me, which suits me well because before I leave, I've decided I'm going to create a mess. Soon, I arrived at my destination, Healer Maria's cabin. From the moment I woke up from her treatment, I was sure she didn't believe I was human again, and I was sure she would try to convince Athan Buffet to put me under surveillance again. What's more, Athan Buffet is my mate, and this woman always looks at him with sincere eyes. Based on these two things alone, she should be damned. Although I promised Thana would not cause chaos, she is always a stupid person who only knows how to do things in a sneaky way. Maybe she's afraid of Athan Buffet's abilities, but I'm not. I'm sure Athan Buffet won't be willing to kill me even if I keep killing blood. After all, his love for me is so hot that I don't need humanity to feel it. Besides, if the only healer in their pack headquarters is brutally killed, I believe this will cause panic and confusion in the entire pack, and it will be easier for me to escape in the chaos. And maybe I won't even need Thana's help anymore. I walked lightly to Maria's window and gently pushed the window open a crack. Maria was sitting at the table, concentrating on reading a thick, ancient book. I looked at her fragile and fair neck and couldn't help but smile. I can almost imagine her blood splattered on the spot when I bit her throat. Just as I was about to break through the window, a hand grabbed my shoulder and pulled me back. I couldn't help but leaned back and almost fell. Damn it! I shot violently, but my wrist was held again. The person who stopped me turned out to be Thana. What did you promise me, sister? Thana said exasperatedly. You shouldn't cause any chaos until I take you away. I curled my lips disapprovingly and pulled my hand away vigorously. However, I was secretly surprised in my heart. Thana was much stronger than me because of having wolves. But since I also have my wolf, I find that she is not my opponent at all. But today, not only can she easily block every attack from me, but her aura has also become extremely powerful. Catherine Green, I believe you feel it too. I am much stronger than you now, so I advise you to be obedient, or I will tell Athan Buffet everything you plan. At that time, I believe you will not be able to escape from here in your life. Tana threatened in a low voice. Fine, whatever. I replied angrily. When can we leave? Go back to your room. When the moon shines on the mountain, I will pick you up. A few hours later, the silver-white moonlight scattered into the darkness, reflecting the layers of tree shadows on the distant mountains. Someone knocked lightly on the glass window, and I saw Thana's profile as soon as I walked over. It is time. We went unnoticed all the way out. I searched for Athan Buffet's smell. He wasn't around. We quickly passed through the packed training ground and came to the back mountain. 2 Delta werewolves stood by the back door. They seemed very relaxed, talking in low voices. This way. Thana gave me a look. And I realized that there was a small exit a few meters away from the back door, but the exit was covered by weeds, so it was not obvious at first glance. And just like that, I left Athan Buffet's pack without any effort. After confirming that it was far enough away from pack, I stopped and looked at Thana beside me. Not bad, little sister. She shrugged in response and walked forward. It's just that she didn't see me stretch out my sharp claws behind me, pointing directly at her heart. However, the moment I was about to touch her, I suddenly felt dizzy, and then a strong pain made me fall to the ground. The familiar smell of peppermint fell from the sky, and I slowly raised my head to see Athan Buffet's face. Thana beside him also looked at me seriously, and a person came out from behind them. It turned out to be Werewitch Marie, who had already left. I've known for a long time that you haven't regained your humanity, Catherine. Athan said with a frown, with a look of impatience on his face. You will be in more pain in the future, but I will always be with you. No, no. I wanted to struggle, but Marie raised a hand to me, and I felt an invisible pressure in the air that made me unable to move. Don't worry, Catherine. Let me help you. As Marie said, she lightly tapped my head with her finger. My eyes darkened, and I fainted. Mommy, help me. Help me, please. I love you, Catherine. I love you so much. Hey, sister, I'm so sorry for what I did to you. All kinds of voices filled my head, and they pulled my nerves so painfully. My whole body was cold, and the blood in my whole body seemed to stop flowing. There was a sharp pain in my heart, but that feeling didn't arouse any emotion in me. It was just annoying. Suddenly, a white light flashed out of the darkness. The scent of lavender surrounded me in an instant, and a man said to me in a low and cold tone, I'm sorry, but I can't control my wolf. He gasped a bit when he spoke, and the surging heat surrounded us. My heart was pounding. I tried my best to raise my head, and raised my hand to caress the corner of his strong mandible. Just when I was about to see his face, he suddenly let go of me and backed away sharply, and then disappeared in an instant. I fell back into darkness. I began to grope and walk in the dark, but my body became heavier and heavier, and I felt very tired and vain. What's the matter? Shouldn't I be very strong and agile? I lowered my head involuntarily, only to find that my right hand was resting on my stomach, and my lower abdomen was slightly bulging. The surrounding was extremely quiet, and I heard 2 extremely faint heartbeats coming from my belly. What is this? I felt a familiar feeling, as if a long time ago I tried my best to protect these 2 faint heartbeats. At this moment, I found that my lower abdomen became flat, and the 2 little lives in my stomach disappeared. I felt a little flustered, but at this moment a small hand took mine. I looked down that little hand and saw a cute little girl. She grabbed my hand and walked forward desperately, looking very unhappy. Lily, wait a minute, Mommy is very tired. A little boy's voice sounded from my left, and he was talking to the little girl dissatisfied. I want to say, I'm fine, I'm not tired, but when I looked forward again, the little girl disappeared, and I quickly looked to the left, and the little boy also disappeared. I stopped abruptly. Where did they go? Intense unease came over me, and my heart ached as if it was being grabbed. Mommy, help me. A cry came from ahead. I immediately stepped forward. "Mike, Lily, hold on, Mommy is here to save you now." My throat seemed to be bound by an invisible big hand, even my heart was trembling, but my body rushed forward recklessly. I have to save them, no matter what. The white light in front of me was getting closer and closer, and I ran desperately in that direction, but suddenly I fell into a black hole. Ah! I sat up suddenly. My heart was beating non-stop. I was terrified. "Mommy, we're here. You're finally awake." I looked to the side, and my children were standing there, looking at me excitedly. I reached out and hugged them tightly in my arms, never wanting to let go. My boys, I missed them so much. At this moment, the three of us were surrounded by a warm embrace, and I looked up to meet Athan's gentle eyes. "Welcome home, my love." "I'm finally back. Mommy, when you fell asleep just now, Daddy cried in worry." Mike blinked at me, and Athan pushed his forehead immediately. "I was wrong. Daddy didn't cry." We all laughed, but tears flowed down unconsciously. Athan let us go. He raised my hand and knelt down on one knee and put a silver ring on my ring finger. The ring was inlaid with a diamond carved into the shape of a crescent. "Catherine, I know that you have long adapted to the human way of life, so I promise myself that I will propose to you in the most ceremonial way. Now, Catherine Green, will you marry me?" I looked at the ring on my hand and burst into tears. "Yes, I do! Me too!" Lily jumped up and shouted happily. Seeing her innocent appearance, we all jumped up. We had a very simple wedding, and even though Athan really wanted to give me the biggest wedding, I just wanted a simple ceremony. On the wedding day, the whole pack came to witness for us. At Thana's request, Athan allowed my father to come to the wedding. Long time no see. He has aged a lot. He looked at me without saying a word for a long time, and finally choked up and said, "My daughter, I wish you the happiest person." I smiled and nodded at him, unknowingly. I no longer cared about what he did to me in the past, because I am happy enough now, which allows me to gradually forget the pain I once had. As I walked slowly towards Athan, his eyes were red. He took my hand and our eyes met. "When we first met you, we didn't know who each other was, and I lost you because of it. Fortunately, I found you again. I love you, Catherine. From now on, I will give you all love and protect you with all my strength. My mate, my Luna, until the day I die." I looked into his eyes and nodded seriously. "We have missed so many years. In the days to come, I never want to leave you. My lover, my mate, my ruthless alpha. The end."